about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday Five. I'm Alex Armstrong along with Will Kingston, Renee Hondikamp, Harrison Orman-Varty and Kai Wilshaw. Tonight on the show.
Gender ideology has corrupted our institutions.
Net zero is going to destroy the world.
Politicians are supine invertebrate jellies.
Those who use private services should be praised.
An outrage over the blockbuster show Adolescence is a pile of nonsense.
Yes, it's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday Five. Welcome to the Saturday Five. Well, it's been a big week, hasn't it? Angela Rayner's had a triumphant diplomatic week this week. She's been gifted a framed picture of herself by the Vietnamese Deputy Prime Minister. A bold move, although rumour has it that she proclaimed this would look great at the top of the staircase of number 10. Sources say her staff wasted no time hanging it proudly beside her well-worn dartboard featuring Keir Starmer's face. And in other news, Disney released Snow White to the world this week. It's been met by a fanfare of critic reviews, all absolutely slamming it. Yes, it's gone down so badly that even The Guardian have given it a 1-star rating. But I hear the Chancellor has taken the movie to heart as she sits down to pen her emergency budget, pondering how can she get those 7 dwarfs back to work? She's been spotted whispering to a portrait of George Osborne saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who can do austerity the greatest of them all?" Meanwhile, Grumpy's filing the Universal Credit Report as we speak. In other news, Donald Trump has hinted that he's open to joining the Commonwealth. Many are signalling that the British Empire might be back. But I think there might be some confusion here. In fact, I reached out to the president for comment, and he actually just sent this to me on WhatsApp. "Wow, what an honour to be offered to become King of the Commonwealth. I've got the best crowns. Nobody has crowns better than I do." And anyway, finally, you can forget British jobs and slashing carbon. Ed Miliband has now revealed that GB Energy is now importing Chinese solar panels faster than you can say the Temu delivery is here. But here's the kicker, guys. Each of those panels clocks in at a hefty 410 kilograms of carbon emissions just to ship one over. And that's while saving a measly 160 kilograms a year. Now, this government is going fully green, isn't it? With the first panels already being placed supposedly on the roof of MI5 as we speak. It's now said that the security services are so concerned about being spied on by the communist regime that they've resorted to passing information along in the form of Chinese whispers. Anyway, joining me tonight to discuss all of our top stories are my magnificent panel. Dr. Renee, Britain's toughest doctor, ready to dish out a dose of reality to the left, and everyone's favourite fighting age immigrant from across the seas, Will Kingston. Don't forget to turn on your subtitles. Wales' wokest whiner, Kai Wilshaw, is unfortunately back. Yes, instead of advertising, we've realised the only break you'll need is to take it when he's talking. And making his debut on the panel is Harrison Orman-Varty, a Reform councillor who has nothing better to do as his local election has been cancelled this year. Well, you all know the drill by now. Each host outlines their argument about a chosen topic, then we all pile in and the fur starts to fly. And of course, we want to know your views as well. So please send them in to gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to get your questions in for Ask the Five. No topics are ever off limits in those questions. Actually, maybe some are. And also, you can vote for your favourite 5 as well, but go to gbnews.com/poll to vote for your favourite 5. We'll bring you live updates throughout the show. I hope Dr. Renee's not going to win again, because I'm telling you, it's a fix if she does. The vote opens every week at 6 p.m. and it closes at 8:30. We'll bring you the results shortly after. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday night news with another great Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed. Very good evening to you. Let's get you up to date with the latest news. The boss of Heathrow Airport has welcomed an independent investigation into the power outages resulted in disruption for thousands of passengers. Thomas Walby, who this morning has defended his airport's handling of the incident, says he welcomes anything that will strengthen future resilience to respond to unforeseen events. Well, the government has ordered an inquiry, saying there are lessons to be learned. Services are getting back to normal, although more than 100 flights travelling either in or out of Heathrow have been cancelled today. It's led to hundreds of thousands of passengers being affected. The disruption from the shutdown is expected to last through the weekend at least. Now, the airport's put on extra flights, but has warned that the knock-on effect could go into next week. Independent travel expert Simon Calder says it's because airlines are going to have to juggle stranded crews.
While Heathrow is saying we're back to full operation, what they mean is if you've got your pilots and your planes and your passengers in the right place, we can probably handle that. But everything is still in disarray. We heard about all the cancellations on British Airways, total of 100 cancellations today. I think that's going to affect something up to 20,000 passengers, taking us to easily 250,000 since this power plant caught fire and closed down Europe's busiest airport.
The boxing legend George Foreman's died at the age of 76. The two-time world heavyweight champion made history in 1994 when he came back and became the oldest man to win the title again at 45. But go back to his early days, Olympic gold at the age of 19 in 1968. He beat Joe Frazier to win the world championship for the first time at 24, then famously lost to Muhammad Ali in the 1974 Rumble in the Jungle. Foreman later became a preacher. He also became a businessman, making plenty of money from his iconic lean, mean grilling machine. His family say he died surrounded by loved ones after an extraordinary life. Fellow heavyweight world champion David Haye says he achieved so much in his career and Haye always looked up to him.
He's a huge inspiration. He went to the Olympics in '68, got a gold medal there. 5 years later, he's the heavyweight champion of the world, knocking out Joe Frazier. So it shows if you put your heart and mind and focus into one thing, you can achieve great stuff. And as you said, he comes from very humble beginnings, and it was just his sheer will and desire to conquer his opponents that made him the force that he was. And then obviously, he lost a big one against Ali, but he then rebuilt slowly but surely. Came back, and then the new version of the Mark II George Foreman came back, and he had so many magical, amazing nights.
And the Lebanese Health Ministry says 2 people have been killed and 8 others injured after a series of Israeli airstrikes across southern Lebanon. The Israeli military says it hit dozens of Hezbollah rocket launchers and a command centre in the south of the country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the strikes against what he's described as terrorist targets. It came in response to a series of rockets that were fired from Lebanon into Israel. They were intercepted over the northern town of Metshula earlier. Hezbollah has denied responsibility. It says it had no link to the rocket launches. No casualties have been reported, but it is the heaviest exchange of fire in months and puts further pressure on a fragile ceasefire that was put in back in November, which brought to an end a year-long war between Israel and Hezbollah. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more later. Now it is over to Alex and the Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Alex Armstrong and I can promise that you're in for a very, very lively show. Right, we're going to crack on with tonight's first debate and I am going to take advantage of my position and go first. Boris Johnson dropped a bombshell revelation in his Daily Mail column today. Well, at least he thinks it's a bombshell. He claimed, "I now believe COVID was caused by a lab leak." Wow, huge breaking news, Boris. Forget people eating bats in China, wet markets. Yes, Boris now believes that the COVID virus leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Bravo, Boris. You finally caught up to the epiphany my 18-year-old brother had 5 years ago. And this is peak Boris Johnson, isn't it? Shifting his tune the moment it's politically safe to do so. Let's not forget how his government muzzled scientists and journalists who dared challenge the official line of follow the science. Yeah, right. But here's the real kicker for you. Back in March 2020, according to a Telegraph scoop, a top-tier group of scientists and academics warned the government that the virus could be man-made, tied to gain-of-function research. And what do you think happened? They were completely ignored. Boris, of course, defends himself by blaming his advisors and being said that he was lied to by Xi Jinping. Well, make of that what you will. So my question to the panel tonight is, are we stuck with politicians who are just great, supine, protoplasmic invertebrate jellies? Will, what do you think? You're newish to the country. Do you think we are stuck with politicians that just say something because it's politically expedient to do so and change their mind when the story changes?
Yeah, we are. And ironically, that was quite Johnsonian, that rhetoric. This isn't just peak Boris, as you said in your introduction there, Alex. This is peak Conservative Party. I'm so sick of all these Conservatives coming out now with positions that they should have adopted when they had 14 years to take that position or to actually do something. He could have shown global leadership when all of us knew it was a strong possibility, if not a probability, that this virus came from Wuhan, to hold China to account, and he didn't take that opportunity. So I'm so sick of hearing this stuff now because it doesn't matter now.
Kai, so, I mean, listen, obviously I'm criticising Boris here, but you could very easily argue Keir Starmer is the master of supine jellyism.
Of course you would say that. No, look, I mean, Boris's sort of redemption tour, trying to get back into some level of relevance, is quite sad to watch. But to be fair to him, and in a period where we were in a complete national emergency, I really don't see how trying to talk about, when we didn't have any proof either, not much evidence, I don't see her muddying the waters, trying to point fingers would have helped, when actually one of the great things about COVID was that the world rallied together and worked with international partners about the reaction to COVID and the response.
No, well, I don't agree.
We worked with other countries to make sure that we got the help that we needed, and that was a good thing, and I don't think that this would have helped in any way.
OK, so, firstly, COVID has been the most financial, emotional, destructive thing that has ever happened due to political decision-making. We have destroyed a generation of children. We have destroyed a generation of people who actually got fired from their jobs from not having a false medication. But even more than that, we haven't called out China for making this virus in a lab, and whether they accidentally, and I think it probably was accidentally, releasing it and destroying the world. Interestingly, they cancelled all of their internal flights, but still let people from Wuhan fly to the rest of Europe. But having said that, if this were any other country in the world that had done this, there would be financial repercussions like you have never seen. China, everybody says, oh, no, let's not upset China.
All countries...
hang on, I just want to come to Harrison quickly, because, look, I mean, so Boris said he got on the phone with Xi Jinping. He said his advisors told him this sort of stuff. You know, do we need to cut him a little bit of slack here? Do we need to say, you know, well, he was ill-informed by the people behind it, or should he have been smart enough to see through it all? What do you think?
Well, obviously, at the time, I was a Conservative, and I actually wanted to believe Boris, and I think a lot of people did as well. I think he kind of thought, yes, I'm going behind him. But I think the major problem with all of this was I actually understand the lockdowns and how the government acted at first because there was a lot of unknowns and they probably thought we need hedge to be safe. For me, the problem was the amount of time it took for the government to adapt based on the new information they knew. And that was the most critical thing for me. And I think this is Boris trying to do what Boris does best and try save himself. And I do think he loves being in the limelight. I don't think that's limited to himself. It's his family as well.
Alex, can I cover Kai's point that there would have been no good to have come of this if we actually held the Chinese to account at the time? There was a very strict window where there could have actually been proper investigations where we could have come to the truth. 5 years later, it's now unlikely we'll ever really find answers. If there was pressure at the time from a coordinated group of global leaders, you may have come to the truth earlier, and that means the millions of people that died would have had some sort of justice, and it means we could have actually had some sort of truth to come of this so that we're more adept at solving these problems in the future. That time has now passed.
Renee, you were one of those people who was effectively silenced for questioning science, so to speak. They did try, didn't they? But you're still here. What sort of impact did that have on people like you at the time?
So it was devastating. I mean, I called out many things that have since been proven to be true, like don't give children this vaccine, it's causing myocarditis. I was shouted down on BBC News about that by a mother in Glasgow that called me a doctor who was looking for the limelight and sensationalising. You know what? We need people that are going to stand up for our children. We need people that are going to stand up for the truth. And it doesn't matter if they didn't agree with me. They should have debated it with me and asked me where I was getting my signals from and showing me their evidence. But they didn't. And they lied about their evidence. I went on, I think, here with David Strain on Patrick's one night, who made up figures. And it turned out he was working for Moderna, but no one said that on TV. I wasn't working for anyone. I was working for me and my children and other people's children. And I wasn't taking money from a drug company. This whole thing has been corrupt from the core. Boris was part of it. He could have called them out. And the best thing he could have done at his lectern every day was stand up and say, you know why I got ill, guys? Because I'm obese. Let's go on a diet together. I'll come in every week and weigh myself. Let's do it together. That is the most constructive thing he could have said.
Well, you know, Keir Starmer was a man who, you know, there was a lot of Boris slamming here, but Keir Starmer stood up in the Commons multiple times and proclaimed he wanted longer and harder lockdowns, that we didn't go far enough, Kai. You know, is he looking like he's got a bit of egg on his face now?
Absolutely, and I do agree with Renee and with Will, right? There was a window when we could have actually really properly looked at the international response. They tried to get into China and were refused, and, you know, actually, there was a moment when there could have been pressure applied. I totally agree with you.
Do you not just think it's common sense that in Wuhan there's an Institute of Virology, and it just so happens that that is the place where this vaccine, where this virus derives from. At the same time, we've got incredibly intelligent scientists going into number 10 and going to politicians and saying, look, we think this is actually from a lab, this is not from these wet bat markets, which would have completely changed the conversation globally if we'd listened to it. If we'd been the country to say enough's enough.
Well, when should that have happened? When are you saying
March 2020, when these scientists went to number 10?
But do you really think that adding in confusion at that time, when people were already struggling with lockdown, that should never have happened. They shouldn't have covered things up, but they should have had a burden of proof high enough before calling it a country. There's a massive trading part there.
I'll tell you what's happening here, and we're now seeing it again. This is the worrying thing. What was happening there? What 99% of scientists fell in lockstep to the COVID story because they didn't get their research. They weren't allowed to do any studies unless it proved that COVID was dangerous, masks were good, vaccines were brilliant, getting COVID wasn't good, which is a complete lie because the best protection against COVID was getting COVID. What's happening now is it's now being repeated for net zero. 99% of the science say that this is happening. They don't get their research unless they say it. They don't get to do their studies unless they say it. It's the same thing.
Harrison, do you think, obviously parties like Reform are saying they want to scrap net zero. Do you think, we will come on to that later, but do you think we need to have an embrace, or the next government, whoever comes in, and maybe Reform should lead this, they need to embrace this difference of science, because we tend to listen to these quangos, these bureaucracies that are funded by government, that may have actually people in there that has extreme political views. Do you think we need to have a look at where all of that is coming from and give the public the truthful outcome as to where all this science, the so-called, come from?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a massive conflict of interest problem with who receives donations and what people kind of should go down. And there's also, I personally think this is the reason why social media platforms like Twitter or X is such a threat, because it actually allows people to say, oh, OK, well, what about this or what about that? You can't have that discussion because they're just not there on the mainstream platform. So, absolutely, I think when you talk about climate, there are plenty of scientists. For example, I was taught at school, but, you know, that by 2020, the ice caps would have gone. And the generation before me would have thought it was 2000. And so it's like the constant moving of the goalposts, and it's the same with the rainforest and everything that we hear. So don't get me wrong, I don't deny that I think humans do have an impact on the climate. For me, it's how overstretched that is. And every student in this country, when they start their geography class, sticks in at the beginning of their book how global temperatures have done this and this, you know, for hundreds of thousands of years. So I don't think we should discredit that. And I do think it's almost like very similar with doctors, how we saw with COVID. It's almost like if you're not with our narrative, you're not professional and you're not with us.
Kai, do you think that all of these sort of scientific institutions are just made up of people like you with strong ideological left-wing opinions?
No, and I really detest how we completely slam scientists, slam doctors for doing their job. Now, you can't tar them all with the same brush. Yes, clearly, in COVID, that specific instance, there were clear mistakes, and I think they were probably done with the best of intentions, trying to calm the waters rather than cause panic. But to do the same, talking about net zero, to say that all scientists are just in lockstep because they get money from governments and big companies, that is ridiculous.
Well, can I just... Norfolk Skies has written in here. It said, Boris is not a scientist. His access to the full range of scientific opinion was blocked, and he was fed a very specific narrative he didn't want to lock down. Do you think that's good enough for his reasoning capabilities to say, well, I mean, I as someone who was watching from afar, not in government, was able to determine that COVID looked like it did come from a virology institution. But can we give Boris some leeway here?
No, it's common sense. But at the same time, he could have at least said that if you do believe this theory, which seems to be plausible, you shouldn't be shamed, you shouldn't be called a racist, you shouldn't be shut off technology platforms. That's why so many people feel sensitive about this today.
OK, right. Well, great start, everybody. But now, on a slightly big change of tune, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway, with your chance to win a whopping £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, everybody. Still to come tonight, should those who use private services be rewarded? But next, Kai takes on the right-wing outrage over Netflix's latest series, Adolescence. Well, that'll be an interesting one, won't it? Please stay tuned. You're with the Saturday 5 Live on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in touch with us. We love reading your comments at gbnews.com/yoursay. And while you're there, please get your questions in for Ask the Five. I've got some of your views to read out now, actually. So Anne here says, Alex, with regard to the Chinese flu virus, I blame people such as Patrick Vallance, Chris Whitty and other prophets of doom. They weren't prepared to listen to other viewpoints or debate the source. Maureen says, Boris the buffoon seems to be positioning himself to become leader of the Tories again for 2029. And Isabel here says, I was a pregnant care worker forced to take the jab after working my bum off during the pandemic. The whole thing enrages me. I don't blame you at all.
You force a pregnant woman to take an untested jab. You tell her not to even eat prawns that are not cooked.
Incredible stuff, isn't it? And while you're on gbnews.com, why don't you check out our poll? It's at gbnews.com/poll. So far, the results are looking like a general election for 2029. Alex, me, 31. Renee, 35. Will, 5. Harrison, 24. Kai, 5. Will and Kai, joint. Come on.
We're
guys. We can't allow Kai to beat Will.
Yeah, can we break?
Will close at 8:30 p.m. But now it's time for our next debate. Who is going up on the panel? Who wants to have a pop?
It's going to be me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it wouldn't have escaped your attention that the blockbuster Netflix show Adolescence has been causing waves. Now, it's a searing account of a boy sucked into the so-called manosphere, and it covers really important topics about masculinity, violence and internet culture. Now, I binged it in one go. I thought it was absolutely incredible. Reviewers are calling it a once-in-a-generation show. So why does the right wing decide to ruin it and ruin amazing television by making this all about their imagined culture war? They're getting angry because the main character was a young white boy. Now, yes, working-class white boys have been vilified in recent years, and it's only right that we tackle that. But this is a television show, and the right wing weaponising that to make it all about their agenda of division and hate is completely wrong. But I'm sure the panel will disagree. Why does it always have to be about weaponising culture? It's a television show, Alex.
Really, listen, I was one of those white working class boys who was completely forgotten about by successive governments, and every 100 of me who managed to get out of that cycle are vilified, demonised and left behind by successive politicians, by successive governments. And quite frankly, to then peddle this nonsense on Netflix when so constantly they are swapping out races, swapping out genders, for this, that and the other, and then to pin it on young white boys is just taking that even farther. What they're trying to do is demonise them as terrorist, misogynistic young men who go out and stab people. The facts do not support what Netflix is portraying. And this is what's enraging so many working class people in this country. Once again, they are at the butt of a joke by the liberal media elite. It's ridiculous.
I agree with you, and I found your tweeting about this actually very powerful. And I agree that white working class boys have been ignored, and actually importing the DEI sort of framework from the US into the UK never worked, because actually class is one of the biggest determinants of life success in this country. We'll talk about that later when we talk about things like private education. I agree with you on that. But there's been plenty of shows showing about drugs and knife crime with black people.
I'm
nonsense.
Glad you said that.
There are plenty of those shows.
Can I give you some examples? So Coronation Street did a whole programme on grooming gangs. They were white. Spooks had they were hunting down some terrorists. They were from a white evangelical church. Starmer stood up in our parliament this week and called it a documentary. It's not a documentary, it's fiction.
Absolutely.
He actually said it should be shown in schools. Well, why should we show it in schools? Because it's not real events. Perhaps we should show real events, like documentaries about the sexual predators in our society in schools. Well, we have to stop painting our white boys as privileged, but also toxic.
Well, look, I mean, I really do think this is typical liberal elites trying to frame the topic in a way that they can easily talk about, because, let's face it, if they framed this as a young black boy, for example, there'd be outrage, wouldn't there?
Yeah, that wouldn't happen in a million years. And I'd be less worried if this was just yet another example of the liberal media talking down to the white working class. But there are consequences, because we've got a moronic Labor government that are now using this to try and inform policy decisions. They're forcing schools to watch this, they're going to put it on in Parliament, and they're laying the blame at people like Andrew Tate or porn or all the wrong reasons, as opposed to having proper conversations around culture, around ethnicity and around families, which is where the problems lie.
Yes, just a clarification for the audience. Keir Starmer did correct his comments about that being a documentary. But you may argue the damage was already done. Harrison, what's your take on this? You're a young man. What do you think about what's happening to? Yes, yeah, well, exactly. What do you think is happening? Because I don't think you can put this down just to people like Andrew Tate. I think this is because of decades of neglect, and this is going back, 30, 40 years, in my opinion.
Saying Andrew Tate is lazy, right? Yeah. I'll be honest. Some of the stuff he says won't have a positive influence, right? But it's not just TV. I don't remember the horrific events that we saw in Nottingham with that horrific attacker. Yeah. Nottingham's police put a photo on Twitter, a stock image of a white arm being arrested. Right? They then deleted that tweet. It's weird. I mean, it goes both ways. It's if something was, a crime was committed by predominantly white people, and then they got a black person to betray it, I'd find that odd. Yeah. So I think it goes both ways, and I think the point to highlight, white working class boys they perform the worst at school, they're least likely to go to university, and it's almost like, but they'll be okay. There's so many, plans to go for leadership programs and all this sort of stuff if you're from an ethnic background, if you're a woman. But if you're a white working class lad, there's not much you can actually grapple onto.
I completely agree with you, but these are two different issues. Renee, you said it yourself. It's fiction. It's a TV show.
Why would we show it in schools?
It's been incredibly successful, and we shouldn't. Obviously, we shouldn't be doing that. But there's, we can trade shows as much as we like. There's Gangs of London, Top Boy, plenty of shows.
Top Boy was excellent and did show black violence in
exactly. But so how can you, on the one hand, say, oh, this is endemic, that we're always blaming white people, when there's plenty of other shows that you can point to? This is just the right wing selectively getting angry about fiction to serve their agenda. Well, it just gets people angrier, more divisive, just creates more hate in our society. And I think that's wrong.
Well, the problem I've got with it is I don't feel like it's being portrayed as a drama. It's clearly based on some sort of truth that's happening, hence the reason why politicians are inviting drama TV stars to talk in Parliament. Why are they not talking to actual experts about
this? And this is also the case when you hear people like Stephen Graham and the creator of the show say things like, we wanted to create something that felt true, we wanted to create something that was meaningful. They are not putting this forward as popcorn entertainment, they're putting this forward as social commentary, and as a result of that, you need to take into account the way that they are casting the main perpetrator.
For me, the sadness of this is that Andrew Tate is vile, and so is the online porn that all of our kids, whatever colour, are subject to now, probably by the age of 10. What we should be doing is not actually even looking at the Andrew Tates of the world. We should be asking why. Why are our young boys being drawn to people like Andrew Tate? And then, once we have the answers to that, sort it.
Harrison, I just want to ask you, because, a lot of the criticism is falling... people like Gareth Southgate saying there's not enough strong male leaders in society. Do you think that's the reason why young people are sort of up in arms these days? There's a mental health crisis in the country. Do you think it's because
I think it's a huge part of it. The problem is when you don't have anybody to look up to, there's a vacuum. And the people that fill that vacuum are people like Andrew Tate, which really shouldn't be there, to be honest. Right? Especially people who aren't able to watch that and think, oh, I can clearly tell he's saying a joke. Some people who take it literally, those who are impressionable, that's really dangerous, right? So you need to have that vacuum filled by, I actually think Gareth, okay, is a good person to look up to. We need to have male role models in that sense, and that's why I actually think someone called on there to be a minister for men, which I think is extremely important because men have been underperforming, and young boys do need someone to look up to, positive role models, and absolutely father figures is a huge thing as well.
And we need to be able to say it.
Yeah. Final word to you on this, Kai. Yeah. Do you think there's enough masculine role models that have positive sort of impacts on young people? Because a lot of the time the left are telling young people to demasculinize and feminize. Do you think that there's enough strong masculine men to look up to?
No, I don't. And this show could have been a really good opportunity to talk about some of those issues, about internet culture, which has sucked so many people into this sort of spiral. It's causing massive troubles for this generation of kids. We could have talked about the crisis of masculinity. Making this about race and making this about dividing people just means that we don't get to move on to those really serious topics.
OK. Well, I just think we should leave white working-class boys alone, frankly. Still to come tonight, Dr Renee reveals the real economic cost of Labour's hunt for net zero. But next, a shocking new report reveals public bodies, including the NHS, have been collecting information on gender identity rather than biological sex since 2015. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
After a chilly week, things are turning warmer for Cyprus. We've seen some very heavy rain this week in Spain, but finally turning drier. Still a cold breeze coming down from the north, though, bringing a chill to the Canaries, and still quite a few heavy showers across southern Spain and for Catalonia and the Balearics too on Sunday. But it does look as if it will be turning drier. Some heavy showers for Croatia, plenty of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. It'll be warming up here too and turning much drier in Barcelona next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now I'm furious with our director this morning because I said this is not breaking news, and so he's gone all out.
He's gone all
breaking
out.
News everywhere. Because guess what, ladies and gents? The lineup for Glastonbury 2025 has been released.
It's great.
Who cares?
It's
frankly?
great.
Who cares?
I really like it.
I couldn't give a monkeys.
Right, I'll tell you.
An Arctic monkeys.
Well, they're not playing, are they?
I've no idea.
I don't think they are. US pop star Olivia Rodrigo.
Who?
She's very good. British band, the 1975.
Who?
Are going to headline.
And Neil Young, who many of us will remember from decades and decades.
Is he there?
Who is 80 and he's playing.
Right.
And
good for him.
Well, yeah, but that's something, because apparently Charlie XCX is playing. Who?
Well, she just won 5 Brit Awards.
Win the Brits,
yes.
Absolutely.
Well,
so
don't care about that either.
Stephen, she is a real
amazing person.
This is a very brat boy summer.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
And a brat boy summer.
This is growing out my pocket.
It looks like a bouquet.
Alanis Morissette, who I heard of, Fatboy Slim and the Scissor Sisters.
And Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart, yeah.
And the Prodigy. You will have heard of Rod Stewart.
Yeah, I'm not.
The Prodigy, you would have heard of.
The Prodigy, you would have heard of.
Fatboy Slim, Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
Snow
Patrol did the song for Grey's Anatomy. It's brilliant.
I've never seen
The Libertines.
Anyway,
Maccabees.
I think it's a great lineup. Alex Armstrong and Scarlett Maguire are here for this latest on the breaking news this morning. You couldn't give 2 hoots, could you, Scarlett?
I will not be going to Glastonbury, but my son probably will be for the sort of 15th time in a row.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the Five. I've got some of them here, actually. I think the name is I here, said, Alex, shut up, leave Boris alone, please. No, I'm not going to leave them alone. In fact, I'll go after any politician who I believe is saying one thing and doing another. Josh here says, adolescence puts more of a spotlight on how our schools are rubbish, weak, teachers. Adam here says the family unit has been destroyed over the last 50 years. And these are the consequences. Very interesting stuff. And while you're on gbnews.com writing your views in, please vote for your favourite 5, gbnews.com/poll. Currently, the results are moving fast. I'm in 18, Renee's 28, Will 19, Harrison 28, Kai 7. These
I need help.
Very quickly. The bot army between Harrison and Renee. Okay.
The Reform clan.
Yeah, the Reform clan's out in strength. Now it's time for our next debate, though. Who's going next?
I will take this one, Alex, thank you. A government-commissioned review released this week has revealed what many of us already knew. A regime of self-ID has corrupted the data collected across our public institutions, from the NHS to the police to our universities. The individual consequences have been numerous and shocking, from men being put in women's prisons to mothers compelling doctors to change the sex of their babies to cancer screenings being missed. But perhaps the cumulative impact is what is most distressing, and that is that this just contributes to the further distrust in our institutions. When you next hear this Labor government say that they believe in evidence-based policy, do not believe them.
Yeah, well, this is really interesting. What do you think, Dr. Renee?
So, I mean, I've been calling this out for a while now. You know, when there's lots of things here. Firstly, when you ask people to come forward for their cancer screening and you ask cervix havers instead of women to come forward, 40% of women don't know what a cervix is. So you potentially alienate those people who could get cancer. Then on the other side of it, the women that have decided to become men and their record has been changed, we won't call them for a cervical screen. So whose responsibility is it? Is mine as a doctor? Is it theirs as a patient? I say it should be theirs. They're the ones who chose to change sex.
OK, Kai, what do you make of this?
We talked about trans issues last week. We're talking about it again this week.
Oh, sorry, Kai.
And I don't deny that, obviously, you know, clarity of communication in public health is key. And when you have those adverts, those stories that pop up now and then about the cervix havers and all this sort of confused language that we use, I obviously agree that's wrong. I've done PR and comms before. I know that doesn't help.
I would suggest, Kai, as an exercise, you go onto the government website and have a look at all of their health policies, where they've got rid of the word mother, they've got rid of the word cervix, they've got rid of the words breastfeeding, and so on. None of the male descriptions have gone, by the way. Just the female ones.
That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing that that's sort of short-sighted, but...
Short-sighted.
So, and clearly, what we're talking about, you know, not noting gender and sex is wrong, and that's being changed now. They've done a review to make sure that you're recording both, right? But no. Yes, yeah. Well, that's what the story said. But can I just make the point once again that when we focus on a tiny minority of trans people in this country, vilify them, talk about them constantly on the airwaves, all it does is mean that hate crimes against trans people, who are already facing incredible barriers in life, just rise exponentially. 4,732 in 2023. So it's a record high of hate crimes against trans people. Do you think that's right?
OK, firstly, I'm going to just correct you on something. When the government were asked for would they actually change the NHS and the police force and the prison service into recording sex, not gender, they said, no, we won't adopt this report. We will discuss it in the civil service and we will approach interested parties. Do you know what that means? It means they'll have a meeting with the trans lobby and nothing will change. So they haven't changed it, Kai. The only thing that West Streeton has changed this week is that children now cannot change their NHS number. Children.
Harrison, look, this is quite a big issue because this infiltrates almost all of the government departments, not just the NHS. Do you think this ideology is so entrenched now that we have to live with it? Or is there something we can do to reverse it?
I think what the problem is that for me, and I think for a lot of people, sex is fundamental, right? It's on your passport. It's either M or F, right? Now, that is based on what every child is taught at school, whether you have an XX or an XY chromosome. That underpins everything. So I personally think what the problem is with public sector organisations is what we accept as default, right? So I personally think that by default, you know, it's a case of that you are a man and you're a woman. However, that being said, I think if someone wants to go and say, actually, I'd rather you address me as a woman because that's how I identify, I don't have a problem with that. If someone who is a man identifies as a woman, I'm not going to go out my way to annoy them. I will call them and be respectful. I think for me, it's what we see as default, and I think that default thing should be based on sex, but if it wants to be requested change, then I think that should happen.
Final word to you, Will?
Yeah, but the thing is, if you do kind of go along with things like pronouns, you are therefore enabling the downstream consequences of that, like putting men in women's prisons, like endangering women in changing rooms, like ensuring that women don't have a fair playing field on sport. The pronouns, that sort of thing, which you may think is common courtesy, is just the starting point to enabling all of those worst consequences down the line.
Well, in fairness, it does depend on the scenario. In something like a prison or a maternity ward and stuff like that, or especially in domestic abuse shelters, then it is a very different scenario.
we also get
Sorry,
to the
guys,
point...
we have to go. We've got to move on, or we're not going to get the next debate in. And I know you're all waiting. Who's it going to be
It's
next?
me.
Who's going up? No, it's not you.
Is it not me?
It's me. It's Harrison.
It's me.
Sorry, we do.
She wants to steal your thunder for winning the poll.
Yes. OK, I'm up.
Yes.
So as we enter our month of this Labour government,
feels like years.
Another school has bitten the dust. That is St Anselm's in the Peak District. It's been operating for 137 years. It's survived world wars, recessions, and pandemics, but it couldn't survive a Labour government. I personally think that this tax on education is completely unjust, and I like to take the stance that those who use private services should be praised. They haven't taken a spot within the state sector, and they are contributing to jobs and the economy within the private sector. I'd go one step further, actually, to say that those who are well off and can afford private services should be using them, so that the public services available are there for those who really need it, and standards will increase there as follows.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, listen, I'm a state-educated young lad. I grew up in all state schools. I never went to private school, never, unfortunately, had the privilege to do so. However, I believe the public has a right to choose where they send their children. And, I'd love to be able to make enough money in my life to send my kids to private school. But on the other hand, I also know plenty of privately educated friends and peers who actually, just as well off or doing as well as I am, frankly, Will. So this is just an attack on education for people who've got the choice.
Of course, choice is important, but one thing which the Labor Party fundamentally fails to grasp is that a strong private sector enables a strong public sector. If you have a weak private sector, you will have an outflow of people into the public system, and that is one of the major reasons where you see the problems in the NHS at the moment, because private healthcare isn't strong.
OK, Kai?
I agree on private healthcare, right? Because actually, if you can lessen the burden on the NHS, then people should be rewarded for going private versus being in the NHS. However, on education, it's a completely different situation. In the UK, private education is completely different to other countries, and because of class and because of how it's functioned as to funnel people in to successful jobs, into government, and that's wrong, and that needs to change.
Yeah, I just want to get Renee in for a final word, because unfortunately we've got to go to a break shortly. But Renee,
You know,
go ahead.
I pay for my child's school place in the state, she goes to private. I pay for my healthcare in the state, I go private. I should be rewarded for that, not demonised.
OK, well, still to come tonight. We'll talk more about this, but still to come tonight, the funniest... You don't want to miss this. The funniest meltdowns of the week in our triggered tantrums. But next, Dr. Renee asks whether the economic cost of net zero is really worth it. Yes, you're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we also start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. It's this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier. However, with lots of cloud around, that does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the Five. I've already got one of your questions here ready to go for later. And some messages sent in as well. Martin has said, Alex, don't be silly. Would you have ever criticised Nigel Farage? Obviously not. Difficult to be critical when your lips are surgically attached to Farage's backside. Well, I'll tell you what, Martin. Well, first of all, don't say there's no balance on GB News. I've criticised Nigel Farage plenty of times when I feel it is warranted. Anyway, don't forget to vote for your favourites at gbnews.com/poll. I'm on 17, Will's on 16. Renee has sped ahead here on 32. Harrison on 29, Kai on 6. And the votes will close at 8:30. Now, I wonder who it's time for. Who is it?
Me!
Yes, it is you this time, Renee. Go on.
OK, so if we needed any more evidence that net zero is going to impoverish us and see us back in hair shirts to be noble, we saw it this week. A leaked government report about the cost of net zero was stark. Net zero will wipe billions off of our economy by the end of the decade. They're even suggesting a 10% drop in GDP. It will potentially trigger a financial meltdown around the world. That's your pension savings wiped out. National debt will skyrocket as more money is pumped into green initiatives. All of this madness funded by us, the taxpayers, benefiting China and India, who are making the solar panels, making the turbines, and shipping back to us the coal-fired steel. We've already and continue to close our industries. We should bring it all back. We could have made it ourselves with our own energy, our own workers, and benefiting our own economy. We need to scrap it all now and bring the investment back home and rebuild Britain so Labour are feeling good about themselves while we suffer.
OK, short and sweet, Kai. Should we just scrap all this nonsense and just bring Britain back to its good old production days?
No, basing a whole story on a leaked report, I don't think is how I want to do it. There's been plenty of other reports that show the huge economic benefit of net zero. It's a real opportunity to reindustrialise in this country. It's actually the opposite of what you're saying, Renee.
Harrison, sorry, I just want to bring Harrison in. Go on, Harrison.
Yeah, I mean, those who actually care about the global emissions of the world should be against net zero, because global emissions actually increase when you have to import things like gas and biomass. So if we actually kept it local and drilled in the North Sea and just brought it across from there, global emissions would actually go down rather than importing it.
OK, loads more to come tonight on the show, including will the US join the Commonwealth? You're here on GB News. Please don't go anywhere, and we'll see you on the top of this hour.
I mean...
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. So this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier. However, with lots of cloud around, that does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 3232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Alex Armstrong alongside Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Harrison Allman-Varty, and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including Triggered Tantrums, my favourite part of the show. And our big interview, as well as the Saturday Scrap, is 7 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Yeah, still to come tonight, we'll be discussing the chaos that erupted at Heathrow Airport, as well as the scrapping over whether Labour is implementing Rwanda 2.0 off the back of their plan to send migrants to the Balkans. We'll also be showing you this week's Triggered Tantrums. Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the 5. So please don't forget to send them to www.gbnews.com/yoursay. And also, while you're there, don't forget to vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com. How is that poll looking? I'm on 15, Renee 34, Will on 18, Harrison 28, Kai on 5. The votes will close at 8:30. But first, it's your Saturday night with Aaron Armstrong.
Hello there, very good evening to you. Our top stories. Pope Francis will be discharged tomorrow after spending 5 weeks in hospital with double pneumonia. And the Pope was admitted to hospital on the 14th of February with a severe respiratory infection. His medical team say during that time the Pontiff suffered 2 critical episodes where his life was in danger. However, his doctors have now confirmed he's stable, but will need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican.
The Holy Father was never intubated, and he always remained alert and oriented. The Holy Father will be discharged tomorrow, as we said before, in a stable clinical condition with a prescription to partially continue drug therapy and a convalescence and rest period at least 2 months.
The boss of Heathrow Airport's welcomed an independent investigation into the power outage that's resulted in disruption for hundreds of thousands of passengers. Thomas Waldby, who this morning defended his airport's handling of the incident, says he welcomes anything that will strengthen future resilience. The government has ordered the inquiry, saying there are lessons to be learned. More than 100 flights travelling through the airport have been cancelled today. Hundreds of thousands of passengers have been affected, and the disruption is expected to last through the weekend at least. Independent expert Simon Calder says it's because airlines are having to juggle stranded planes and stranded crews.
While Heathrow is saying we're back to full operation, what they mean is if you've got your pilots and your planes and your passengers in the right place, we can probably handle that. But everything is still in disarray. We heard about all the cancellations on British Airways, total of 100 cancellations today. I think that's going to affect something up to 20,000 passengers, taking us to easily 250,000 since this power plant caught fire and closed down Europe's busiest airport.
Two-time world boxing champion George Foreman's died at the age of 76. Foreman had an incredible record, 81 fights, 76 wins and just 5 defeats. He took Olympic gold at 19, demolished Joe Frazier to become heavyweight champion for the first time at 24. A year later, he was beaten by Muhammad Ali in one of the sport's greatest fights, the Rumble in the Jungle. Foreman did return, though, 20 years later, but become world champion again at the age of 45. He later became a preacher. He made millions from his iconic lean, mean grilling machine. Promoter Frank Warren says those fights with Ali and Joe Frazier will forever define him.
And those three guys, they were the holy trinity of heavyweight boxing. You know, they fought each other, no ducking each other, great fights. When the fight happened, Ali, as I was saying, wasn't so mobile, and he brought in what he called then his rope-a-dope, where he'd lay on the ring on the ropes and sort of keep his hands up and take shots with his elbows. And George basically punched himself out. He was a big man and he punched himself out, and then suddenly, a split second, Ali opened up and stopped him. It was quite a moment in sport.
And the Lebanese Health Ministry says 2 people have been killed and 8 others injured after a series of Israeli airstrikes against Hezbollah. The Israeli military says it hit dozens of rocket launchers and a command centre in the south of the country. Those strikes were in response to rockets being fired from southern Lebanon into Israel. They were intercepted over the northern town of Metula. Hezbollah has denied responsibility. No casualties have been reported from those attacks. It is the heaviest exchange of fire in months and puts further pressure on the ceasefire that brought an end to a year-long war between Israel and the Iran-backed group. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more in about an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 with me, Alex Armstrong. And I can promise you are in for a very lively hour. Let's crack on with tonight's big interview. Heathrow Airport has been accused of a colossal failure after it was shut down yesterday following a fire at a local electrical substation. Well, flights have now resumed, but with over 1,000 flights cancelled and 200,000 people impacted, delays are expected for days.
First of all, what I'd like to do is to apologise to the many people who have had their travel affected during the day-to-day. We are very sorry about all the inconvenience. And I'd like to stress that this has been an incident of major severity. It's not a small fire. We have lost power equal to that of a mid-sized city.
Yeah, to discuss this, I'm very pleased to welcome independent energy consultant Catherine Porter joining us now. Catherine, thank you very much for coming on the show. Now, listen, Heathrow Airport is one of our most critical public transport hubs. It's one of the biggest airports, if not the biggest, I believe, in Europe. How damning is this for Britain?
Well, I don't know about for Britain as a whole, but I think it's certainly pretty damning for Heathrow Airport. We saw the CEO speaking there, and he seemed perfectly content this had taken them the best part of a day to switch over their supplies from the substation, which failed, to the two other substations to the south of the airport, which are now providing its electricity supplies. I think they have some pretty difficult questions to answer about why their infrastructure isn't more resilient and can't switch more quickly.
So Heathrow Airport doesn't have a backup, is that correct? So we're one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have a backup supply of energy for our biggest airport?
Well, so it depends what you mean when you say backup. Heathrow has 3 substations that serve it. There's a large high voltage substation to the north, and that's the one that was affected by the fire. And then there are 2 smaller substations, one to the west and one to the southeast. Now, they also have a small amount of diesel generation that backs up things like the runway lights and the control tower, so that when you have, in the moment a power cut happens, if you've got planes that are currently, coming into land at that point, obviously if the whole airport went dark, that would be incredibly dangerous. So that's really to provide short-term support until flights can be diverted. There's nothing to suggest that any of that failed. And then also they do have a biomass plant on site, but my understanding is that that plant was only installed to provide some power to AC and heating within a couple of the terminals. It was never intended to power the whole airport operations. And I think this was done as part of their sustainability strategy, on the sort of rationale that if they install some biomass on site, that reduces the overall carbon footprint. Obviously, there's a whole argument about whether the wood pellet biomass is low carbon, but nevertheless, that's the way it's treated under carbon accounting. And I believe that's the motivation for installing that. So the airport isn't designed to have backup electricity on site from its own generation. What it is designed to have is these alternative grid supplies through these other 2 substations. But as I said, what we heard from the chief executive yesterday was that it took them many hours to reconfigure their systems to run from those 2 other substations. And that really is, I think, very unsatisfactory, and they should look at making that cut over a lot faster.
Sounds a bit nut zero madness there, but Dr. Renee, would you like to comment on this?
So on that note, Catherine, hi. You mentioned that they have a very small diesel-operated generation that they can use. Would they be able to have enough diesel backup that, should it happen in the future, they could just switch straight to that? And I guess my question is this net zero madness again, trying to make them, look much better to the world, actually damning when it comes to problems like this?
So yes, absolutely, they could install larger diesel generators. And if you look at the data centres in the area that didn't go dark during the power cuts, they do have large diesel generators. So the London 4 data centre in Slough has 2 large diesel generators that actually can operate their site at full load for 2 days. So absolutely, they could put large diesel on site. They could also do what JFK in New York has done, and they've put a large gas generator on site. Actually, well, it's large by site standards. It's about 110 megawatts, which is a small gas power station, but nevertheless ample to power the whole of the airport. And in fact, that could also feed back into the grid if they had it. And I think that some of this is driven by net zero concerns. We have various emissions rules in this country about the use of on-site diesel generation. Obviously, these things would need to be regularly tested, and if you're going to make that investment, it would make sense to optimise around it. Current regulations really deter that.
Will?
Catherine, there's a theory doing the rounds that this may be Russian sabotage at play. How much credibility do you assign to that theory?
I think it's very premature to speak about the causes of the fire at the substation. I think this is a relatively old set of equipment at the substation, and substation fires happen. These are not extremely rare events. They're not extremely common either, but I definitely wouldn't say that the fact it happens is evidence of sabotage. I think we need to wait and see what the investigations tell us.
Harrison, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi Catherine. I'm just wondering, is Heathrow particularly vulnerable? Has this maybe highlighted some vulnerabilities, or is it fairly standard to other airports that may have other questions to follow about how we can safeguard stuff like this so it doesn't happen again?
So I'm not an airport expert, But I think that one of the things about Heathrow is, if you look at the history about how the airport has grown up and the fact that it's very much within an urban centre, all of this infrastructure has to coexist with other types of infrastructure. And I said the substation towards the north, from my understanding, is actually quite old equipment there. So that naturally provides vulnerabilities. And you have quite a lot of the infrastructure there actually underground, which makes it harder to upgrade and replace. A lot of the infrastructure we have on our electricity grid in the UK, and in fact actually across the developed world, is really coming to the end of its natural life. So we're having this fairly significant challenge that we're having to do a lot of grid updates to connect renewables, because they're being built in places where you don't have existing infrastructure. So in our case, in the north of Scotland or off the East Anglia coast. And then bringing that in, you're building a lot of brand new stuff. And then there's also the upgrade and maintenance cycle of the existing grid that we started building in the 1920s. And obviously that all costs a lot of money. Ofgem, that regulates the electricity networks, has been very keen to keep costs down for consumers. And so there's a real question around to what extent all of that investment is happening at the scale and pace that it needs to, in a context where it's been quite important to try and keep bills as low as possible.
Yeah, Catherine, I want to bring in Kai for a quick comment. We haven't got much longer left, so Kai, over to you.
Catherine, I'm just wondering, you just said that rushing to judgment about the Russian interference rumour is premature, but then why is net zero coming under the crosshairs? And is that really right to be blaming that so quickly after the incident?
Again, I would say that we don't know what caused the fire, and that has to be investigated. We know quite a bit more about Heathrow's setup and what they have on the site. They've made quite a lot of statements over the previous decade about their plans for sustainability. This is, and part of that drive has been to counter some of the arguments that people are making against airport expansion, and say, airport expansion is damaging for the environment. So Heathrow's been trying to demonstrate that it's a sustainable operator and taking environmental stewardship seriously. And so we do know that they've got this biomass plant. We know that they've been trying to replace and reduce the use of diesel across the airport. There's a lot of publicly available documents and reports that they've published in the last decade that talk about this. So we know that's been on their agenda. We also know that there are regulations about the use of diesel, backup generation, and so on. So it's not, it's quite different to speculate that they were affected by their thinking on net zero when it came to backup than it is to speculate that there might have been terrorist activity that caused the fire.
Well, Catherine Porter, independent energy consultant, thank you very much for joining us tonight. A spokesperson from Heathrow Airport has told GB News, we can confirm that Heathrow is open and fully operational today. Teams across the airport continue to do everything they can to support passengers impacted by yesterday's outage at an off-airport power substation. Beg your pardon, everybody. We have hundreds of additional colleagues on hand in our terminals, and we have added flights to today's schedule to facilitate an extra 10,000 passengers travelling through the airport. OK, still to come tonight, what's going on here?
How it feels to have it be out there.
It's gonna be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking. No, when I'm talking, you're not talking.
Oh, yes. Alec Baldwin's wife is featured in this week's Triggered Tantrums. And Will Kingston and Kai Wilshaw will be scrapping it out as to whether Labour's plans to send failed asylum seekers to the Balkans is just Rwanda 2.0. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. See you after the break.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip? Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our hope is that this will have impact to be able to drive connections for those who have been suffering from hearing loss and allow them to experience those special moments.
OK, so how does the hearing aid feature actually work?
It's really simple, and that is what's so beautiful about the feature. We designed it so it could be used across all age groups, all tech savviness, if you will. You simply take a hearing test right on your iPhone using the AirPods Pro 2. It creates a personalized hearing profile, which then automatically pre-programs the AirPods Pro 2 to work as a hearing assistive device. And so just with the touch of a button, you'll now be able to augment the frequencies where you may need some assistance. And what's beautiful about the hearing test is it's a clinically validated audiogram. So we compared it to what is considered gold standard in the hearing world. And the hearing aid the hearing aid feature basically simply turns on and allows you to use it not just when you're talking with one another, like with another individual, but whether you're using it across phone calls, your media, your entertainment. So it's a really simple experience.
And have you noticed, because this has been rolled out around the world before it's come here to Britain, but have you seen a spike in people realising that they actually have hearing loss as a result of taking the test with this feature?
I can anecdotally share with you that even just in my circle and talking to people, people sometimes have picked up things that they didn't expect and noticed that they had some hearing issues. What's probably been so impactful is the letters we get from customers. One of the ones that we just got last week was a grandmother who was able to hear her soft-spoken grandchild for the first time by using this. And I think that is what's so special about it. We've already heard from customers around the world who have been able to use it over the past few months, how it's made an impact in their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the Five. Thank you for your messages so far. We'll read some more of them out later in the show. And don't forget to vote for your favourite five at gbnews.com/poll. Here's the update on that poll. Me, 17, Will, 17, Renee, 36, Harrison, 24, Kai on 6. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. But now, it's time for this. Yes, it's the Saturday Scrap. It's our tonight's main event. Will Kingston goes head-to-head with Kai Wilshaw. Labour is looking at deporting failed asylum seekers to offshore detention centres in the Western Balkans. Get that, everybody? I wonder what went wrong. Under the plans, rejected migrants, including those from countries the UK deems unsafe, could be sent to return hubs in nations like Albania and Serbia. But does this prove that Labour is now reverting to Tory policies after they failed to tackle the small boat? And realistically, is this Rwanda 2.0? Round one.
Well, it's actually, Alex, to your question, the complete opposite of that. The Labour government is not just rehashing old Tory policies, they're being the adults in the room and creating proper, thought-through, policy-based, evidence-based policies fit for the future. Now, as well as this consideration of having overseas hubs where we send failed asylum seekers, the Labour government has been taking control of this issue, investing in border security, working with European partners, finally, to actually have some sensible measures across Europe that benefit the UK. The Labour government is finally adopting a sensible approach, whereas the Rwanda white elephant cost us billions and achieved nothing. So thank you, Labour. We're getting the job done, and I don't see anything wrong with this. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, that just sounded like a really rubbish Labor Party press release. It didn't sound like an argument. What you didn't hear from Kai there is how it would actually achieve the goal, which I imagine is to reduce the amount of illegal migrants coming to this country. You didn't hear anything about that from Kai, and the reason you didn't hear that from Kai is because it won't achieve that goal. This is only for people who have already landed on the shores of the United Kingdom, and we know that by that time, it is too late, because they get stuck in our woke judicial system where, for any number of reasons, if you're a Jamaican limbo dancer, or if your kids don't like Balkan chicken nuggets, or whatever may be the case, a judge will find a reason to keep you here. That is the problem. What this is a Balkan holiday for the 1 in a million refugees who somehow managed to be so monumentally awful that a judge finds a reason to deport them. We know what the answer is here. Get out of the ECHR, boat turnbacks, and offshore processing. Not offshore detention once a decision has been made, but offshore processing before they hit the country.
No, because Labour is doing a bunch of things in this country that will tackle the problem that you said that this won't affect. There's plenty of things happening.
Name one.
The deportations, getting rid of the ridiculous waiting list for asylum seekers that happened under the Tory government that has meant that we're in this situation in the first place. As I said, investing in border security, working with European partners to stop the boats before they actually launch across the Channel. There's plenty of things that the Labour Party is doing, rather than relying on one headline-grabbing project like Rwanda was and doing nothing else and just hoping that it might deter a few people. The Labour Party is doing all sorts of things. And isn't that just the right approach? Thank God we have adults in the room, finally, after so many years.
Renee, this is ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, it's a worse Rwanda, isn't it?
Of course it is. And the thing is, Kai, if they're going to do this, then what they should have done is not waste the 400 million, by the way, not billions, of taxpayers' money that they put behind Rwanda and tried it. Because now all they're going to do is spend another 400 million to, first of all, let these people apply and apply and apply here while we house them, feed them, clothe them, send them on bicycle rides and off to the zoo before they actually get deported, if they get deported. This is words and nonsense. It won't happen. We should either put them in detention centres until we chuck them out, or Rwanda, bring it back.
Harrison, what would you do?
I think absolutely right. I think the secret here is to leave the ECHR, right? Because otherwise we will have the same lawyers using the same clauses to exploit those and stop what we need to happen. So I think, first of all, we need to take control. And this is all part of leaving the European Union, in my opinion, by the way. If we're going to fully leave, this is an element of that. So we need to leave the ECHR. We need to have our own British Bill of Rights, whatever you want to call it, and make sure that those clauses aren't there so lefty lawyers can't interpret it how they like.
Well, I think Rupert Lowe's got this right.
Yeah.
What did he say? Detain, deport. Harrison, is Rupert Lowe ex-man of reform? Has reform got this wrong? They're coming under a lot of criticism for not being tough enough on deportations. Where do you stand on that?
Well, look, this is way above my pay grade. I will not be writing the immigration policy for reform. I mean, my personal view is that having a strong stance on immigration is incredibly important, and I believe reform do with or without Rupert Lowe. I agree Rupert Lowe is very strong on it, but just because he's no longer in the party doesn't mean that reform will still not have a very strong stance on immigration. So I think it's important to remind that. And I think, what is the alternative? It's like we go back to the Conservatives, who will promise the world and deliver nothing, or we will have what we have with Labour.
Harrison, are you afraid to say what you really believe on this because Nigel Farage may get back at you?
Absolutely not. I mean, look, no, otherwise I wouldn't be on this show. There's clearly an element of trust here, isn't there? So, absolutely not. I mean, Nigel is an absolutely amazing leader. I mean, I'm not just saying that because,
He's messianic almost, I would say.
But if it wasn't for someone like Nigel, you've got to look at the last poll that we had, where most people in Britain don't really know who Rupert Lowe is. It is really down to Nigel Farage because he can communicate like no other politician in the country at the moment. So, absolutely, you have to unite behind your leader, and I think we've got an excellent one in Nigel Farage.
You passed the test. Well done, young fella.
Why can't we detain, deport and just get rid of foreign criminals who've broken into this country as their first act of arriving here? Why do we have to go through layers and layers of judiciary, bureaucracy, liberal elites trying to stop foreign criminals from leaving and being deported from this country? Why is this such a big deal for Labour? Why can't they just do the right thing? Even your idol Tony Blair says we should do it.
Look, this focus on big, just sort of singular, very flashy headlines like Rwanda, like pulling out of the ECHR, just saying that that's going to solve everything. This so obfuscates the simple and obvious point This is a complicated system. We want to do right by the people who we want to be here.
Okay.
We have to be fair to the British people and get rid of foreign criminals and so on.
Do you know what annoys me?
And it's more complicated than just saying ship them to Rwanda or leave the ECHR.
It's only more complicated.
Not really.
Politicians in this country don't have the backbone enough to do the hard things. And do you know what really winds me up is there's going to be an emergency budget coming out in the next few days where Rachel Reeves is going to stand up in Parliament. A spring statement.
Which she said wouldn't happen.
Which she said wasn't going to happen. And she's going to slam British people, take their benefits off of them while we could be saving tens of billions of pounds by actually doing the right thing and saying, if you come to this country, you're going to go back to France or back to wherever you last came from.
You just have to turn it off. There is a beacon on Britain right now which says, come here, you get this.
Exactly.
If you turn it off, they will stop coming. That is the first major step they have to take.
Shouldn't we just stop giving legal aid to people to appeal our decisions? Is that not the first step?
Yeah. Yep. What do you think? Repeal legal aid?
Sure. Like, the basic thing is, Harrison got this right. You need to remove incentives to come here, and if you remove incentives to come here, the boats will stop. It is not complicated.
I can tell you from the patients that I see every day, mothers who are living in shared multiple occupancy households where they're scared to go to the bathroom because of the bloke down the corridor in his room, that these people are being treated better than those mothers with their babies.
And you need to ask the question of where are they going next? Because if they're closing hotels down and they're not going home,
well, they're
what's
not
happening
closing hotels down, they're opening.
No, well, some are starting to close. And you're having then to purchase homes. Now, where you have areas where housing waiting lists, some of whom might have been on there years, there's a massive sense of unfairness. And part of it will be paid for by the government, but a lot of it will be paid for out of their own affordable housing contributions, paid for by developers. It's completely unfair.
You know, the thing is, Kai, right? So the British public have voted time and time again to lower immigration. They had a historic referendum, which you could say was de facto a vote on immigration in this country. It's been too high. The Tories promised multiple years to get this under control. Labour promised to get this under control. Why are we not taking the tough action necessary? What is it about the Liberal establishment that is so vehemently against tackling illegal immigration and being tough on it like Donald Trump is doing? Donald Trump's just deporting people. Why can't we do that?
We are deporting people.
We're not deporting those who've come through illegally on the boats.
No,
we don't think that's not true. We're getting people who are willing to leave, and we're probably paying them for it.
But we are doing a record number of deportation flights.
No, you are right. And I'm not. Listen, it's still not enough. The more people that we've deported are coming in on the small boats, unfortunately. So every single person you're deporting, you're getting 5 more of them coming into the country. It's not sustainable.
But in fairness, it does just highlight how rubbish the Conservatives were.
Yeah,
it does, unfortunately.
But Kai, just to pull you up on figures again, they've deported 8,000 people, mainly to Albania, because the Tories did a return agreement with Albania.
There've been deportation flights to multiple countries across the world.
Like 80% to Albania.
Yeah, and it's right that we're doing these deals with countries in Europe. We're doing more of them now.
Did that deal.
No, yeah, I know. Rishi Sunak, to his credit. And I've given him credit before on this show for doing that deal. But the Keir Starmer's now expanded that. He's working with plenty of other countries.
Since he's been in?
Well, he's talking to all the Balkan countries. He's been talking to Maloney. But
which deals has he done?
I'm not over the details, Renee.
None.
But he has been making agreements with countries, having those informal discussions. I think we're going to see the fruit of that work very soon.
Okay. I don't think you just send them home. Anyway, still to come tonight. What's going on here? Yes, we'll be revealing this week's triggered tantrums. But next, Donald Trump suggested he's open to becoming the US, becoming a member of the Commonwealth, an associate member, that is, following reports that King Charles will offer the invitation during the UK state visit. Fascinating stuff. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
After a chilly week, things are turning warmer for Cyprus. We've seen some very heavy rain this week in Spain, but finally turning drier. Still a cold breeze coming down from the north, though, bringing a chill to the Canaries, and still quite a few heavy showers across southern Spain and for Catalonia and the Balearics too on Sunday. But it does look as if it will be turning drier. Some heavy showers for Croatia, plenty of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. It'll be warming up here too and turning much drier in Barcelona next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome.
especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What's the inspiration? How does it feel?
Well, I mean, this is a very personal story because I was in a relationship that had come to an end and, you know, when you're like, let's just have that meeting, that one last chat to put, you know, all our differences aside. And I was expecting to meet for a chat, and when I opened the front door, his key was on the mat. Like, he'd literally come and done a flit, got his stuff and left.
Done a runner?
Yeah, I didn't want to face me.
So you never got that kind of closure?
I never got the closure. I felt sick. I got like this gut punch. I ran to the fridge. I poured a big glass of wine and cried a lot. And that's kind of how the song came about. I wanted to create a song with my co-writer, Paul Fisser, like that really made people feel how I felt at the time. And I think we did that with this one.
Do you take a lot of inspiration from kind of your own past life experiences then when you're writing?
I do now. I mean, with Atomic Kitten, I spent 20+ years singing somebody else's lyrics.
Right.
So for me to write my own stories and my own life lessons and sing about it, it just hits differently, and it's quite cathartic and
freeing, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a bit like therapy.
I was going to ask about that, with the difference between being in a band for so long and now going on a solo career. So that's really interesting. Obviously, you're singing other people's songs. So do you sort of feel like a sort of band for hire, or do you know what I mean? You turn up and sort of sing the songs that someone else created for you. Is
not
that
really. I mean,
not the wrong way of putting it? Do you know what I mean? But this is now much more personal.
There's an emotional connection to your own
That's what I mean. Yeah.
lyrics. If I wrote Whole Again, I would probably cry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the 5. I'm not seeing enough Ask the 5 questions. And don't forget to vote for your favourite one of us, that is, at gbnews.com/poll. Update on the results so far. I'm on 16, Will is on 18, Renee 36, Harrison 24, Kai 6. And that vote is going to close at 8:30 p.m. But now it's time for this. Yes, it's the bunch of 5. We go through topics that have taken our attention this week. Will, what have you got for us?
Yeah, Alex, the Commonwealth has been a geopolitical white elephant for some time now, and I think King Charles has had a rather brilliant and, dare I say it, Trumpian idea to try and re-enliven it. He's going to offer Donald Trump associate membership for the United States into the Commonwealth. Now, I think also Donald Trump had a rather surprising response. We've got Donald here. Donald, what was your response to all this?
I think it's brilliant, actually. I think we're going to become the 51st state. I think America and Britain will make great allies.
Great allies. Great allies. Donald Trump loves the idea. What do we think, team? Is this a good call?
I think it's bizarre.
But it's a masterstroke, isn't it? I think Keir Starmer, you can say whatever you like, he's playing the game with Trump quite well.
That's why we got tariffs last week.
But we've been spared the worst, Renee, and it's all down to his leadership. He's been playing a clever game.
Oh dear, oh dear. OK, Renee, what have you got for us?
OK, so this week I discovered that there is a school, the Northwood School in Hants, who has decided that they're going to cancel their Easter bonnet parade next Friday and the service that they were going to have. Easter, biggest Christian festival that there is. They've decided to cancel it for inclusivity, and instead they're going to concentrate on Refugee Week. We've got the letter here from the headmistress. I don't know if that's coming up now.
Well, that's a bit much.
Yeah, where she actually says that it's being cancelled because they want to be inclusive, so they're going to focus on Refugee Week. I mean, what a joke. This is a Christian country. My daughter is so looking forward to making her Easter bonnet tomorrow. That's the task I gave Daddy today, joint parenting. But, this is important. They need to know about their religion of their country. And once again, they'll celebrate Eid in most of these schools, but they won't celebrate, and all of the others, they'll celebrate Passover, etc., but they won't celebrate anything Christian.
Why is this, Kai? Is this your ilk infiltrating the education system and just saying Christianity's too unwoke, it's not woke enough for me?
No, because I consider myself a Christian. I had an amazing time at church in a Welsh church for the majority of my childhood, and I think it's completely wrong and it's completely misguided. I don't know. I know that. I think it's about people misinterpreting, actually, what D&I is, and it shouldn't come at the detriment of Christians and Christian holidays at all.
OK, well, talking of rebirth, which is what Easter is all about, I have some sad news for you all, because, unfortunately, we are having a birthing crisis in this country. Women in England and Wales, on average, are now only likely to have 1.4 children. That is the lowest since records began in the 30s, and half the levels seen during the 60s baby boom. We are on course to have a rapidly dilapidating population of young British people in this country, and I think that is half the battle when it comes to solving the immigration boom. Is there a similar problem happening in Australia from what I read as well?
Yeah, and people aren't having sex across the Western world. It's a real problem, and I think you need to start doing something about it. Hungary's got the right idea. I think they introduced a policy in the last week or two that said if you're a woman and you've had 2 kids, you will no longer pay income tax for the rest of your life. We need to start thinking of these sorts of measures because this sort of population decline is the biggest problem that not enough of us are talking about.
Renee, what do you think? Do you see a lot of older couples not having kids now when you're surgeries?
What I do see is women in their late 30s suddenly wanting a baby and finding that it's much harder. The problem that we've got is we've told women that they can have everything and they must have the career or their life isn't worthwhile. Well, do you know what, women? The most worthwhile thing that a woman ever does is grow and give birth and raise a baby. And that's where we need to keep getting back to.
Well said.
OK, Harrison, what have you got for us this week?
Yeah, potholes. As someone from Surrey,
strap in.
Any other Surrey viewers would know that those big 4x4s electric vehicles absolutely destroy the roads. But what if I told you that self-healing roads could be coming to you soon? You'd think that's something out of science fiction, but it's true. Scientists at King's College London and teamed up with Swansea Uni along with some others counterparts in Chile have come up with some new technology that contains, I've got to get this right, plant-based spores that are packed with recycled oils that when compressed the oils seep out filling the gap. So that would be amazing. I mean, really. But whether or not it's true or not is one that we need to see.
Well, I think it would be great because most councils are too busy protesting for Palestine that they don't really care about potholes. So we probably need this.
So true.
You still have to have people to go and put it in the holes, I imagine.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
I was thinking about
it sounds very net zero friendly.
Exactly. You probably lost Renee when you said plant-based. sounds a bit woke.
I don't want to eat it, Kai.
All right, Kai, what have you got for us?
I saw a poll this week that shows me actually what we already knew, what was obvious to all of us. It was a ranking from best to worst of Labour leaders in the last few decades. More than half ranked Corbyn worst. Tony Blair ranks as the best leader we've had at 39%. Now, doesn't this show that the Labour Party, after a dicey few years where we dabbled with Corbyn, it's changed, became a party of government, and I just think, welcome back, the Labour Party. It's been wonderful to be a member.
He was found guilty of enticing us into war under false pretences. What that, Tony Blair?
Oh, he presided over the kind of economic growth that we desperately need now. He did a few things right, Renee.
So
that justifies it. That justifies it, does it?
To the general public, Tony Blair would go right down near the bottom of that list. That man's done more damage to this country, in my opinion, than any Labour leader.
And don't forget, this was the government. When the Tories took over, they left a note to say, sorry, there's no money left.
That was a tradition that multiple ministers did. It was obviously a joke, and they...
Well, it wasn't a joke.
It certainly wasn't a joke.
Through a decade or so of austerity. reality. What kind of a joke is that?
Milked it for all it's worth.
Ridiculous. Joke, if you ask me. I mean, what would the reform leadership rankings be if Nigel Farage was not involved in it? What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Richard Tice would be up there. I think he speaks with real conviction, and I think, well, obviously he had the helm before Nigel came back. I think personally he's done more than really any other politician to highlight the absolute madness of net zero.
Okay.
So I think he'd be a really strong contender.
Well,
I noticed there was a name that wasn't mentioned there, Harrison. We've been given the directive from up high that he who shall not be named is no longer, look, Rupert Lowe, I still think would be the long-term best leader of the Reform Party.
Renee, who would be your favourite Prime Minister you've ever sort of lived under?
Probably Thatcher. I grew up with Thatcher, didn't I? So
I wonder how many of you at home would say the same. I wasn't born, unfortunately, to see her reign. I had to experience the horrendous last 34 years of my life under completely useless politicians. But anyway, moving on. Still to come tonight, what's going on here?
How it feels to have it be out there.
It's gonna be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking. No, when I'm talking, you're not talking.
Oh yes, Triggered Tantrums is next. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. It's this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier, however, with lots of cloud around. That does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip? Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing.
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m, it's Ask the 5. It's your time on the show. Send your questions into gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com/poll. Let's have a look how that's doing. Me, 18. Renee, 35. Will, 18. Harrison, 24. Kai on 5. The votes will close at 8:30 p.m. Well, roll up, the circus is in town. Yes, it's time for your triggered tantrums. You've got a free ticket to this week's Ringmasters of Rage, Clowns of Collapse and Acrobats of Absurdity, tumbling over zilch. Just wait until you see this lot. Will, what's your triggered tantrum for us this week?
Yeah, I didn't think it would be possible for me to feel sorry for the awful woke actor Alec Baldwin, but this exchange with his wife on the red carpet may just have done it. Let's see it.
The Ilaria show.
No, I think we're gonna see. You know, we're gonna see how it feels to have it be out there.
It's gonna be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God! When I'm talking, you're not talking.
Sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why. Yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No, I mean, I think this is a really raw show, and it's very real, and we took a lot of chances. And, you know, I think that we'll see where it leads us. We'll see what it feels like to have be out there.
You see that?
It does make you feel really awful because you see how he responded to it. Do you think it was a joke, Will?
No, it wasn't a joke. And that look towards the end is the look of a man who knows he's made a terrible, terrible mistake.
It's the way he tries to slowly get away.
That's the look.
Deep breath and walking away.
Oh, what have I done with my life?
I mean, this, I think, is really interesting. If you link this back to what we've been talking about tonight with our lost boys and our broken families and our women not having children anymore, this is almost part of it. That women feel, even when they've had 7 children with a man who is their husband, that they can actually humiliate them in public life, that they feel that emboldened, that in charge. Now, I'm not saying that women shouldn't have an equal relationship with their husband. I would never, however angry I might be with my other half, and it happens, I'd never humiliate him in public.
Not just in public, but on television, where we're all watching it now. That's how embarrassing it is. OK, well, let's move on. Renee, what have you got for us this week?
OK, so I just wanted to actually have something that was in the UK, because most of our tantrums have been in the States. So I thought this was a good example. And I want to show you what went on during a commemorative speech for the 80th anniversary of VE Day in the House of Lords this week.
Significant anniversaries where we have veterans who fought for our freedom still alive. Look at this. I mean, this is so disrespectful. This is a group of people who are shouting that they don't want the House of Lords, and that's fine, you know. But this was during a speech commemorating our veterans who fought for our freedom, for their freedom to do that. It's disgusting.
Absolutely.
There are other ways to protest.
Absolutely. The problem with this is that because they've done that, what will happen now is measures will come in place to restrict being so close to the Lords. You might now get that you'll have a glass wall in front, or whatever it might be. So because of their actions, ordinary people will pay the price.
That's a good point. The other thing with the left is the means always justify the ends, and it means they can be absolutely horrible and nasty and rude. You see the same thing with Tesla.
But they're kind.
They're kind and compassionate, but if you have to blow up the odd Tesla car in order to make your point and get that outcome...
domestic terrorism, for example. That's okay.
The means justify the ends.
Unbelievable. I just find that, you know, particularly because it was that World War II heroes tribute. I mean, they sat there, they could hear it, because they could hear it in the gallery in the Lords, what was going on. It just made it even more disgusting to do that, and I don't even think you would go that far, would you, Kai?
No, and I've told you all how I feel about some of the really inadequate, ineffective protesting that we have, mainly on the left, but actually also this is just an example of something quite deeply insulting, and they do us an injustice on that.
Yes. Well, I'm going to bring you some more tantrums from the United States of America Take a look at this.
Now, I find it ironic, of course, that our chairwoman, Congresswoman Green, is in charge of running this committee. Now, in the last Congress, Chairwoman Green literally showed a dick pic in our oversight congressional hearing, so I thought I'd bring one as well. Now, this, of course, we know is President Elon Musk. He's also the world's richest man. He was the biggest political donor in the last election. He has billions of dollars in conflicts of interest, and we know that he is leading a power grab, also abided by and encouraged by Donald Trump and, of course, the chairwoman, Congresswoman Green.
Yeah, well, I have to first of all apologise for the very coarse language you used in that clip there. However, I don't think it takes away from how insane American politics has become, because they're obsessed with Elon Musk. They knew when they voted for Donald Trump that he was going to bring in Doge and that Elon Musk was following him on campaign trails, and they were all saying he wasn't elected. But there was no lie, there was no cover-up here of Elon Musk's involvement in the Trump campaign, was there, Renee?
But there wasn't. And don't forget, a multitude of people who work in government are not elected. They're appointed. That's the whole thing about it. It's how it works. But what I find staggering about this is they are now so deranged. This is Elon derangement syndrome. That they're in their Senate committees using language like that, holding up great big pictures of the man. It's just crazy.
Kai, you obviously agree with this form of process, don't you? This is your cup of tea.
I love in US politics when they bring their big, ridiculously comedy-sized placards. But no, I think you call it Elon derangement syndrome, but his role is completely without precedent, and the levels of access he's getting to personal data, to classified data, when he has no official role, and that was never the plan. It's not just Doge, and when he has so many conflicts of interest as the world's richest man with multiple government contracts, it's completely wrong, and people are right to call it out.
It's delegated authority from the president. This is completely normal behaviour, and what he is doing is right. The reason that they are getting so angry is because they feel betrayed. He used to be one of them. He used to be of the left. He used to be the green activist, which he still is, by the way. They feel betrayed.
OK, Harrison?
And also, I actually don't even think it's within his interest to hold that role. We've seen he's lost, what, over $100 billion within his share price.
That's the point.
So he's not doing it for himself, really. So I'd put
I think he probably is.
Well,
I'm not so sure.
Elon Musk was under attack from the Democrats, left, right and centre, so I'm not surprised he jumped on board with
But people know if they're voting for Trump, they were getting Musk.
Well, that's true. Well, look, don't go anywhere, because coming up next, it's the Saturday 5 Extra. We're going to let our hair down, have a pint, and anything could happen. What could go wrong, actually? So get ready. We'll be back in just a moment. So 5, we're moving to that sofa over now, so leave your stuff here. We're moving over there.
Huzzah!
Let's go get a pint.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we also start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. So it's weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier. However, with lots of cloud around, that does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra with me, Alex Armstrong. I'm joined with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Harrison Orman-Varty and Kai Wilshaw. It's 8 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5 Extra. Yeah, still to come, we'll get the panel's highlights of the week, the tantrums that have made us laugh, and we'll dissect the drama everyone's talking about, adolescence. We'll also be answering your questions in Ask the Five, so please send them through to gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget to vote for your favourite five at gbnews.com/poll. That vote is closing imminently at 8:30 p.m. But first, it's your Saturday Night News with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you. Our top stories. The Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband's ordered an independent investigation into the power outage at Heathrow Airport, saying there are lessons to be learned. Now, services have largely returned to normal, although more than 100 flights in and out of the airport have been cancelled today, despite authorities saying it's now fully operational. The Heathrow CEO, Thomas Walby, says he welcomes the investigation and hopes the findings will strengthen the airport's future resilience. Well, hundreds of thousands of passengers were affected as a result of yesterday's blaze at a nearby electricity substation. The Met Police say there's no sign of foul play. Passengers have, of course, been filing back into Heathrow today, but knock-on delays are expected throughout the weekend and possibly beyond. More on that as soon as we get it. Pope Francis will be discharged tomorrow after spending 5 weeks in hospital with double pneumonia. The Pope was admitted to hospital on February the 14th with a severe respiratory infection. His medical team say during that time the pontiff suffered 2 critical episodes where his life was in danger. Well, his doctors have this evening confirmed the Pope is now in a stable condition, but will need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. He is, though, expected to make his first public appearance in 5 weeks tomorrow. The 2-time world heavyweight boxing champion George Foreman's died at the age of 76. Foreman had an incredible record, 81 fights, 76 wins and just 5 losses. He took the Olympic gold at the age of 19, beat Joe Frazier to become world champion at the age of 24. A year later, he took part in one of the great fights of all time, losing to Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, but returned 20 years later to become world champion again at the age of 45. He went on to be a successful businessman with his iconic lean, mean grilling machine. His family say he died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones after an extraordinary life. David Hay, another fellow world champion, says he was very much an inspiration.
He's a huge inspiration. He went to the Olympics in '68. Got a gold medal there. 5 years later, he's the heavyweight champion of the world, knocking out Joe Frazier. So it shows if you put your heart and mind and focus into one thing, you can achieve great stuff. And as you said, he comes from very humble beginnings, and it was just his sheer will and desire to conquer his opponents that made him the force that he was. And then obviously, he lost a big one against Ali, but he then rebuilt slowly but surely, came back, and then the new version of the Mark II George Foreman came back, and he had so many magical, amazing nights.
British landmarks, including Buckingham Palace, the London Eye and Windsor Castle, will fall dark tonight for an hour as part of World Earth Hour. Lights will be switched off at 8:30, so it's happening soon. It's already happened elsewhere in the world. This is a view of the monuments. I hope we can bring it to you at the Acropolis in Athens, going dark earlier. Here we go. That's the Greek capital. As the lights go out for an hour, we also saw the same thing happening at Tokyo Tower in Japan. That's the famous tower. And we'll also bring you a quick shot of Hong Kong's Victoria Harbour. Here we are. There's the lights go off, and we may just see them come back on again. Now, Earth Hour, organised by WWF, the Nature Group, encouraging governments around the world to do more for environmental issues, and you are encouraged to switch off your lights at home as well. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more just after 9 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. Let's get the first of our Ask the Five in, which is from Fergus.
I just watched the whole of Adolescence, and it's harrowing. It's brilliant acting. As an ex-actor, I think I'm allowed to say that. It's incredible, but it's very powerful. And the idea of Keir Starmer to put it to young white boys in schools, I think it's horrifying. It's mega X Factor. All it would do was horrify them about some boy who maybe did or didn't kill somebody. And yes, show it to parents, okay, of all races, not just white. So what does team think is the right thing that should be done with this incredibly powerful series of films.
Yeah, thank you so much for your message, Fergus. I'm just going to start on this because I feel really passionately about this topic, and I'm sure some of you on the panel do. But I feel that young white men in this country are the most targeted group of people, the most vilified, and clearly, by all the statistics, the most forgotten. There's no DEI crusader coming for them, is there, Will?
No, there's not. This reminds me, when I was in Year 10, the Christian Studies class I was in put on an interview with Ted Bundy in his final level interview before being executed as a lesson for us not to watch pornography. And I think this is a similar case of them trying to find the wrong role models to try and teach lessons. I just think I'm with Fergus on this one.
What do you think?
I don't think anything should be done with this other than people should use their own free will to watch this drama, because that's what it is. It's not a documentary. If they want to, I don't think it should be put out there as something that is a lesson for people. I don't think it should be shown in schools, and I certainly don't think our Prime Minister should be standing up at his box at PMQ's Question Time and talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Kai, this is ridiculous, isn't it? The Prime Minister is up at PMQs talking. I mean, he knew that question was coming because that's how PMQs works when it's a Labour person asking it. He knew what he was going to say. How is the Prime Minister using British taxpayers' time and important questions to him to talk about a drama on Netflix?
Well, having watched the whole thing, actually, it's quite ironic because one of the things that they talk about in the show is how schools are a bit run down and how they're just showing films all the time, and that's portrayed as a bad thing. So actually, his advisors should have actually watched the 4 episodes. But it shouldn't be shown at school. But I think it is. We should champion it because it's an amazing example of brilliant British acting, tackling really hard topics. Brilliant film industry. Those are brilliant. And it's not a race.
Should we champion 3 Girls then? Should that be shown in schools?
I don't know.
3 Girls is the true story. It was a documentary about 3 girls who were raped continuously by grooming gangs in Rochdale.
Based on the Maggie Oliver book.
Showing films and documentaries in school.
Right.
But Harrison, what do you make of all this?
I mean, as an actual show, I didn't rate it. I mean, regardless of all the undertone stuff, I actually just didn't find it that... I mean, I think it started really well. I thought, oh, wow, we're straight into the action. I just thought it kind of fizzled out. One thing I thought was clever about it was all one continuous shot per episode, which was quite clever, you know. But I agree. I think, unfortunately, you can't help but think that this film was created to have some sort of social impact and conversation, which it has. And if it's based on that, then you've got to admit, then why wouldn't they base it on, you know, real-life events? Sorry.
No, you are right. I think they did have some sort of a big political issue they wanted to highlight. It wasn't race. It was all the other topics that this tackles: masculinity, internet culture, the manosphere, and the difficulty of being a young white working class boy in the UK.
Do you think
those conversations could have happened?
Do you know what it is
and
for me?
It's been made into something.
Do you know what it is for me? Particularly, the important thing is that we if we're going to make a drama that's so impactful, going to be seen by millions of people, that we try to have some accuracy to it, or at least do justice by the many young white boys who are struggling, who aren't going to commit violent crimes, and show them and their plight, the ones who have to work their backsides off just to get a pittance in this country. We don't talk about them, but we do talk about them as soon as it's politically convenient. Labour, who have completely neglected the working class in this country since Tony Blair was in office, now all of a sudden seems to care when a Netflix documentary comes out on it. That's what winds me up.
Alex, it's not just about accuracy, it's also because it's lazy. It's lazy because it's ignoring the real problems that go into the sorts of violence that the show wants to portray. Yeah. Culture is obviously a huge problem. Integration from members of the community who have come from first or second generation migrant families. This is all obviously a massive part of this problem, but that's too politically sensitive, so they didn't touch it. That's what annoys me.
And don't forget, yes, we've just had, what's his name, Clifford, kill Hunt's daughters and wives, which was absolutely appalling, and apparently watched Tate the night before. But you know what? If I went and watched an Andrew Tate video now, I wouldn't go out and kill someone with a crossbow.
Quite right. It's the type of audience that's watching it. It's the vulnerable kind of, those who maybe feel a bit outcast by society, which in fairness, that did highlight in that. Those who maybe who are bullied or that feel like society have turned their back on it. Those are the vulnerable ones that people like Andrew Tate can be dangerous for because they're so impressionable.
But we're not talking about parenting, are we?
Let's have a look at our next question. This one's from Alexander. Great name.
The whole point of a meritocracy is to elect officials on the basis of merit and ability and to protect those most vulnerable within a society. But all I can see from the Labour front bench is woeful incompetence and an inability to protect those in our society by scrapping welfare and letting pensioners freeze to death by scrapping the winter fuel payments. I personally can think of loads of different ways to save money. What does the panel think?
Well spoken, young man. Yeah, absolutely. Well done, mate. Well done. That was very, very good.
That's not the first time Alexander's asked a question of the show. I recall seeing him before.
Perhaps you're right.
What an impressive young man. Alexander, if you're out there, congratulations, mate, and good on you, and keep asking questions.
Well, answer his question, because I'd like to hear what Renee says, but Will, go ahead. What's your response to this question?
I agree entirely. I actually don't have anything to add on top of what Alexander said. I thought it was excellent. Renee, you go.
OK, I've got two things to say to Alexander. I'm going to start with, this is the kind of voter that Labour are terrified of. They're terrified of these young men who have finally seen the light and realise that Labour is not representing them or anybody else working class or vulnerable in society. That's why Nigel Farage is picking up these young men in boatloads. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing is we need to take an axe to the welfare system. We absolutely need a welfare system. Yep. We need to protect people who cannot work, who will fall through the gaps. What it's not doing now is that it is protecting those people, but it's also a lifestyle choice for many, many people. We need to define the conditions in life that mean you absolutely cannot work. I would argue that most conditions you can do some work. And then once we've defined those definitions, everybody outside that gets a defined amount of unemployment benefit for a set amount of time, and they have to get a job.
Renee for Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Over to you.
He's absolutely right about us drifting away from being a meritocracy. I remember once I was on a call with Theresa May, and there were about 20 of us on there, and it was probably about 17 boys, 3 girls. And she spent most of that time on that call saying about how we need to get women into politics and what is there to help get women. And so I asked a question, and I said, OK, that's great you do all that for women, but I said, but there's no barriers to join this call tonight. You know, girls could have joined, but they've chosen not to. So what about us young lads who are really interested in trying to get into politics? Why are you ignoring us? And almost it's like, why do we talk so much about sex and the colour of people's skin?
Quite right.
When I apply for a job, all I want to be is candidate 382, and if I get the job, it's based on what I've achieved rather than my background or what kind of...
As an aside, was that one of the longer hours of your life, that call? Jeez, that sounds uncomfortable.
When I was in that camp.
Kai, come on, because this is important. I mean, you know, the Uniparty's been going on for a very long time now. Keir Starmer seems to be perpetuating the same things that Harrison was just saying there. I mean, when are either party going to listen? I mean, you know, let's remember, the Tories had a massive working class vote in 2019. They lost it. Labour took it back, and it looks like they're going to lose it to Reform now.
No, I really like this idea that we're sliding away from a meritocracy. I'll be honest, I don't think the United Kingdom has ever been a meritocracy. We've held...
Well, you're on the show, Kai. Of course it's not.
Very good. Thanks.
Nice.
We haven't, and that's a fact. I mean, the upper classes in the UK have dominated the judiciary, the politics, business for way too long.
They're all woke.
Perpetuated by a system that allows them to funnel through things like the private.
I'll hit back on that.
Private education are a feature of that system which has held people back. And what's the most working class cabinet that we've ever seen? This current one.
Well, I'm sorry, the cabinet that we have at the moment, none of them went to private school, and I think that's the best advert for private education ever.
OK. All right, let's get on to our final question. This one's from Susan.
Hi, panel. With all this talk from the government about Russia and the war, do you think that Russia is a bigger threat to us today than it was 3 years ago? Or is it just the government's propaganda machine churning it all out, hoping that the majority of the public will be deflected from seeing just how bad a job they're actually doing?
No, you know what? So yesterday, this whole airport fiasco, it screamed nonsense to me. The first thing, the front page of some news outlets, Russia attacks, you know, Putin's here, and I just thought, what an absolute load of nonsense. Well, do you think Russia's a real threat to us today, Will?
I don't think they were a threat to us 3 years ago, and I don't think they're a threat to us now. They may be less of a threat to us now because they've been militarily neutered after this war over the last few years. They've got a clear set of objectives. They may be a threat to their surrounding sphere or ex-sphere of influence, but they're certainly, like anyone who's trying to say, oh, we need to be worried about Putin dropping nukes on London is deluded. They are not a threat to the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Pamela makes a very good point that it is distraction.
Yes.
What any government needs a bounce from when they're really doing dire work in the country and down in the polls is a war.
Good old-fashioned
So
war.
it really suits Starmer to be able to say, you know, you need to vote for me because I'm going to keep you safe.
Yeah, and it's been awful and cynical from Starmer, but it has been smart politics.
Guy, what do you make of all this? Is Starmer just goading a war to save his popularity?
Keir Starmer's created the new development in the Ukraine war as a distraction. That's the biggest load of nonsense.
I didn't say that, Kai.
Well, that's the implication that you're...
It's the messaging that they give out around what is actually happening in Ukraine.
And his level of focus on that issue as opposed to domestic issues in the UK.
I personally think the UK is bigging itself far too much. I don't think Russia cares all that much about what the UK does. I think the same goes to China. So regardless of any points made, I just think we're overstating our position a little bit.
Yeah, I do think it's the next big thing, isn't it, right? So we've lost COVID, we're about to lose Ukraine, and now we're still talking up the idea of World War III, despite the fact there's a peace deal literally on the march. I just think it's absolute nonsense. But anyway, coming up, it's all everyone is talking about. That Netflix series, Adolescence, has earned millions of viewers. We're going to discuss the shocking dangers with smartphones in schools next. See you in the break.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The secret about pancakes is a really good pan.
Right.
Because what you don't want the pancakes to do is sticking, so you're sort of scooping them out in look like scrambled pancakes.
Yeah.
I think it's tradition, isn't it? The first one's always a bit rubbish, isn't it?
Mine always is.
That's always the first one goes either in the bin or usually my dad, to be fair. He gets the rubbish first one. Sorry, Dad.
So it's a consistent, and the pan, a little bit of oil. You just want, and then the heat. It's trial and error.
Yeah. How much
pancakes? Well, you want them quite hot because you want to get this colour.
Yeah.
So you want them hot. And when you flip a pancake, you're going to be tossing the pancake. Whether you are or not, whether it's on the ceiling or wherever.
No, that's too complicated, mate.
But and not too big a pan.
Yeah.
OK. Not a wok.
Not a wok.
No.
Not a wok. No, not
Robert, OK, we have to ask the important question.
Should we get on to toppings?
Well, let's get on to toppings. Yeah. So we've got a few bits and bobs.
Now, Adam's favourite is, in my mind, controversial.
I'm curious what you think, Robert, because I really like strawberry jam.
I'll pass you the jam because that's your favourite.
Yeah. Now, is that in the kitchen?
Well, your pancakes look almost like scones, so you can.
Well, in this instance,
yes.
this is going to be fantastic.
Some of our viewers have been writing in with theirs. We had someone saying banana and ice cream.
Banana and ice cream, love it. Yeah.
Oh, right, OK.
Yeah,
someone said, now I found this really unusual, and I guess it's the sweet versus savoury debate. Someone said they have vegetable soup.
You what?
Yeah. I don't know if that was serious or not, but, I mean, each their own. I'm going to go really traditional for my first one and have some lemon and sugar.
Robert, what do you have?
Lemon and sugar, for me, on a very, very flat,
thin,
beautiful, warm pancake that you fold over and then fold over again. So you can almost make them into some sort of crepe Suzette shape.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the 5. I've actually got one I'd like to read out here to you. It's from Age of Reform. They say, 5, do you think there will be a rape gang inquiry whilst Labour are in power? Perhaps we could do one word Quick fire. Will?
No.
No.
Nay? Me? No.
No.
Likely.
Could have predicted the outcome. And don't forget to vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com/poll. Here's the results so far. Alex, me, 20. Renee, 34. Will, 18. Harrison, 23. Kai, 5. And the vote will close.
You've taken 2 off me.
8 p.m.
And I'm falling down.
Well, I think the numbers sort of mathematically balance.
I'm going to vote tactic.
Now, back to the Netflix drama Adolescence, in which a 13-year-old boy is accused of killing a girl in his school. It's all people are talking about this week, and now there are many discussions about children, in particular boys, about what's going on in our schools and social media. Well, an interview in today's Times newspaper had this headline: if just one kid in the class has a phone, they'll all have access to all of the world's porn.
Yeah.
The publication spoke to charity Everyone's Invited about one of its surveys that revealed the majority of teachers confirmed pupils under the age of 9 are watching porn. We're joined by the fantastic former Conservative MP and GB News presenter, Miriam Cates. Miriam, this is, well, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight. This is very, very disturbing. You're a parent, you've been an MP. What's your initial analysis of this?
It's absolutely terrifying, but we know that it's true. I mean, we already knew a couple of years ago when the Children's Commissioner did some research. Back then, the average age of viewing pornography was about 12. We know it's been getting younger because every single year, more and more children own their own smartphones. A quarter of 3-year-olds in the UK owns their own smartphone. And we all know that a smartphone is a window into every single influence that there is across the world. Now, traditionally, the role of parents and the role of society is to protect children from from bad influences. We don't let strangers into our homes. We lock the doors at night. We make sure that teachers and anybody else who have influence over our children are checked, that they're morally upright, that they know how to protect our children. And yet, through the medium of a smartphone and the internet, every single type of evil now has access into our children's lives. And online pornography, for viewers of a certain age, online pornography bears no relation whatsoever to those dodgy magazines that teenage boys used to pass behind the bike shed. It's almost all violent. Real rapes are happening on those websites, and children are passing these videos around them. And it is brutalising our children. And we've seen a 400% increase in sexual violence against children. And about half of that now is child on child. This is an absolute tragedy and a total national emergency.
Yeah, Miriam, I saw that article about young people in schools committing some sort of sexual offence against another child, which was deeply, deeply disturbing. What do we need to do to fix this crisis? Because clearly it's been boiling for a very, very long time and probably gone under the radar for long enough. What do you think Parliament and the government need to do to fix this?
I think we've got to stop children accessing the internet. It's not suitable for children. We know that when children are traumatised in early life, that has lifelong impact. 30% of prisoners grew up in care, despite the fact that only, I think, 0.4% of the population in general that happened to. We know children that grow up in war zones that witness real violence and sexual violence are impacted for life. And yet the majority of our children are now growing up in that war zone. They are seeing this traumatising content often every day. The average time a teenager spends online is about 8-9 hours a day. We've got to take the internet away from our children. It's not suitable. No previous generation would have thought it was sensible to allow all the world's influences into your child's bedroom. So we've got to ban smartphones for under 16s. Now, I completely appreciate that people say this will be difficult, this will be very challenging, the tech companies won't like it. Of course they won't like it. They're profiting billions of pounds a year from our children's misery. But we didn't want to stop children going down the mines because that was economically difficult. We didn't want to ban child prostitution because that was economically difficult. But we did it because we had to save a generation. And that's the position that we're in again.
I want to bring in Dr. Renee here, obviously both parents, so we're very, very keen to hear what Dr. Renee has to say.
Hi, Miriam. Nice to see you. So, Miriam, as a doctor, I'm really interested in that, and as a mother of a 6-year-old as well, who won't have a phone till she's 16. But I'm looking at the data now, and it's not even on the fence, the data. The data is very, very clear that this is damaging our children's brains from very, very young. If you look at Coco Melon, that really lovely happy, singy cartoon that people put in front of their toddlers in their pushchair. That has been designed to keep babies' eyes on the screen for as long as possible. So not only are we now seeing this sexual violence as a result, we're seeing kids with ADHD and all of those associated concentration problems. Why are the government not doing a campaign to explain this to parents? Because I don't blame the parents. I don't think they know what it's doing.
That is a great question. And when I was an MP, this was one of the issues that I worked on, mostly trying to persuade the government that this was doing devastating damage to our children. And as you say, the evidence becomes more and more compelling every week that goes past. But I think the context is, for the last 50 years, we've lived with a liberal worldview, a liberal say that children are essentially born good. And as long as we kind of let them have freedom, they will turn into great adults. Of course, that's absolute rubbish. History tells us children are born a blank slate. And how we raise them, whether we teach them character, whether we protect them from harm, whether we teach them resilience, who are their role models, what is the story that they're growing up into, that's what determines whether they will be good or bad adults. Not this crazy liberal idea that they're born good and that as long as they have freedom, they'll be fine. That's rubbish. Science denies that, history denies that. But that's the worldview that we've been imbibing for 50 years. And we've got to reject it. We've just got to say this liberal idea of how the human brain works is wrong. Let's go back to some empiricism, some science, some conservatism, and understand that human nature hasn't changed. We might be living in 2025, but our brains are billions of years old. And children's brains are expecting to see language, to see people, to engage, to grow neurons that way. They're not expecting to be focused on a screen from 9 months old. Just got to have some science.
Well, it's really interesting because Jordan Peterson speaks really well on this, and he says that authoritarian parenting is wrong, liberal parenting is wrong, but authoritative parenting produces healthy adults.
Exactly. And I think parents have forgotten that they have authority, because we live in a world which tells them not to tell their child what to do. And we're even having this crazy argument about whether to ban smacking. Of course, a parent should be able to smack a toddler on the bum if it does something wrong or it puts itself in danger. Parents have authority, and that means you can say to your child, no, you cannot have a screen. No, you cannot have this. And even if they cry, it's still the right thing to do.
Agreed.
But I think parenting is a societal thing, and you look at what other people are doing. I think it's unfair to pick on individual parents and say, you're doing a bad job, when actually our whole culture is set up to make parents fail. We have to solve this as a society, not by picking on individual parents.
Yeah, Miriam, I want to bring in now our favourite Aussie on the panel. He's a libertarian, so he takes a very different stance to you on this. So I'd love to hear what Will has to say to you and hash it out.
Yeah, I am feeling nostalgic, Miriam. My first ever appearance on GBNews was on this broad topic with you, actually. And I'll say what I said then, that there is increasing encroachment from the government on the role of parents. We both agree that parenting is incredibly important, but I would fear that a ban for 16 years and under from the government is just taking further responsibility away from parents and basically outsourcing that to the government. Is that something that you would be concerned about?
I mean, in general, I'm concerned about government overreach, but I think as a conservative or a libertarian, you have to ask this question. You do believe in government, like you're not an anarchist, I assume. Therefore, what is the role of government? And I think the role of, I'm assuming that, Will. The role of government
only on a bad day,
the role of government is to stand up to vested interests that individuals and families cannot possibly protect themselves against. So the obvious example of that is it's the role of the government to have a military, because we as individual people and families can't defend ourselves if Russia invades. We need the government to organise the defence. You also look at things like product regulation. We can't defend ourselves against pharmaceutical companies from abusing us, for example. We need government, we need regulation to make sure that the products that are available are safe.
Miriam,
and the more complex society becomes, the more regulation you need, sadly. Now, we now have a danger in our society that is destroying children. And 97% of children have those smartphones. Even if you're, as a parent, protect your child from having a smartphone, all they need to go into school is to be shown a rape video by someone in the bus, and they're traumatised for life. Ordinary parents can no longer protect their children against this, and therefore there is a role for the state.
You can buy particular technological alternatives to a smartphone. You can buy a brick which just allows you to text or call your parents without kind of internet.
But you
This is not the analogy with defence is not right. As an individual, you can't set up a defence for the country. You can do things as a parent. They may be very difficult, but you can do things as a parent.
Final word to Miriam on this one before we wrap up.
Well, should we legalise? Why don't we legalise heroin and have it lying on the desk in our children's school and make sure we educate our children not to take it? That's the equivalent.
I think on balance, drug legalisation would be the more effective way to save lives. Absolutely right.
Well, I don't think the evidence suggests that. But the thing is, even if you want to be a libertarian or a liberal, that's fine if you're an adult. But what we've got to understand is that children's brains are entirely different to adults, and children can't have freedom. It's not in their interest to have freedom. Children have to be coerced. You have to coerce a child just to get in a pushchair or to eat fruit. Children are not the same as adults. And the fact is now that because this technology is so prolific, because pornography is everywhere, the idea that ordinary parents, good parents, conscientious parents can protect their children from this is rubbish. They can't. It'd be like saying, let's stop speed limits, let's have no road regulations, no rules, no penalties for poor driving. Now go and teach your child to cross the road safely. Of course you can't. You need a basic set of regulations in a civilised country, laws that people should follow, to allow parents to then bring their children up in a safe way. And at the moment, the internet is a Wild West, pornography is a Wild West, even conscientious parents can't protect their children from it. If there's a moment where the government should step in, it's now.
OK, Miriam, thank you so much for joining us on your Saturday evening. It's former Conservative MP and, of course, GB News presenter Miriam Cates. OK, coming up next.
Oh, you know what, Richard? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Let's talk to Samina instead. I'm not having that.
OK, why did LBC presenter Lewis Goodall kick that caller off his show? We'll find out next in Trigger Tantrums. But first, it's your weather.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
After a chilly week, things are turning warmer for Cyprus. We've seen some very heavy rain this week in Spain, but finally turning drier. Still a cold breeze coming down from the north, though, bringing a chill to the Canaries, and still quite a few heavy showers across southern Spain and for Catalonia and the Balearics too on Sunday. But it does look as if it will be turning drier. Some heavy showers for Croatia, plenty of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. It'll be warming up here too and turning much drier in Barcelona next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News.
Full T's and C's apply.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. It's now time for High Five, where we discuss our favourite moments from the past week. Will, would you like to kick us off with the good news of the week?
Yeah, I'd love to. A study that I saw that was published by The Times only a couple of days ago, which was under the headline that we are twice as kind as we think we are. So they did a study where they left wallets out in public, and then they asked people to say how likely it was that the wallet would be stolen or returned, and then the actual outcomes of whether the wallet was stolen or returned. And it turns out that we think people are effectively less charitable than what they actually are. And as I'm talking this through on live TV, I'm actually wondering whether it's a good news story or a bad news story. Because initially I thought that this was actually, comforting, that we're actually nicer than we think, but it's actually probably also bad because we're more cynical and nasty than we think we are. So I will partially retract my high five in real time.
I genuinely think this is the social media era for you, though, because there's so much negativity online now. People don't share good news, and when they do share it, it's fake. Yeah. So they'll do themselves up in a picture or something, or make something out to be more glamorous, stage something. Nothing feels real anymore. So then you go back 40 years ago, people would have real moments of that lovely community joy. We've lost it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think most people, I think it is hard in this polarised age to remember that most people are fundamentally good people, and you just see the worst elements of humanity. You're right, in social media, on the news, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Renee, what have you got for us?
Well, although I'm going to talk about someone dying, which you wouldn't think is a high five, I'm going to talk about a hero who should be celebrated. And because he died, this is John Hemingway, who was a World War II pilot. He was 105 when he died. He got shot down 3 times, 4 times. He was an absolute hero. He never thought he was doing anything spectacular. And it was people like this. There he is. Look at him. What a wonderful man.
Wow.
Who actually gave us the freedom to sit here on this show and argue. And in a week where those disgusting protesters interrupted a celebration of these people's lives, I just thought we should look at him and say, thank you, John, for everything you did for us.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. What a legend. And I know our GB News viewers watching people like this, it means so much to them because not every news channel across this country will ever talk about stories like this. And I think, more so than ever, we need to be remembering the bravery and the commitment those men made to save, freedom of speech and to save us from tyranny across the continent.
To give us this.
We wouldn't be on television today, frankly, would we? Let's face it.
I certainly wouldn't.
Certainly wouldn't. No. That's for sure. I think I'm next, but I can't really remember what I've got. If I remember, it's a long show. I think we had something beaver related. We do have a running trend of talking about beaver stories on this show.
As we should.
It's all part of the fun. I don't know whether we've got a video to show. Someone, look at this. This is a rare footage of a beaver chopping down a tree, which I think is really quite something because it left locals baffled because they were just wondering how this tree was chopped down. They actually thought, I believe, that it was some local vandal, but apparently it was a beaver. And we talk a lot about beavers because they build back better. And as Boris once said, they build back beaver. So get the beavers to it. They can build a dam quicker than anybody.
Do you know what? Because we're so so obsessed by the environment. This is the kind of environment that we should be obsessed by. Reintroducing traditional animals who do a job. They stop flooding. They know what they're doing. Let them out there to do this work.
This is such a good point. Practical environmentalism is lost in the climate hysteria. You forget about the real environmentalism, the save the trees type of stuff. Well, to save, in this instance, the chop down the tree.
I know you used to be partial to a beaver here or there. I mean, have you got any beaver stories?
Yeah, no, I love diving into a good beaver, but actually, I completely agree that rewilding is a great idea. Habitat restoration is a great idea. Those things aren't lost in the whole net zero push. I sit on a board where we talk about stuff like that all the time.
Who let you on a board?
But we do need to refocus on some of those things because it's a great news story. So
we should have wolves roaming around.
Well, you said
lions,
tigers, bears. Oh my!
We've got to move on. Harrison, what have you got for us?
Yeah, mine is a guy called Antonio Rayo, he's run a marathon basically every year since his 30s. He's 92. And he just did it again this year.
92?
And he managed to get down his time from last year, so he's improved from when he was 91. So well done to Antonio, just proving once again that age is just a number. And he's obviously got no blocks in his mind, so it's amazing that he's done that.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And here's an advert for how you live to 92. You stay fit and you don't allow yourself to be overweight.
No, that's from the doctor.
What's your top health tip of the week then, Dr. Renee? You must have something for those people out there who want to stay fit to their 90s.
Ozempic.
Not Ozempic. Go on, Dr. Renee.
Home-cooked, healthy food, not processed, and keep moving. Doesn't matter how little it is. Just walk up the stairs instead of the lift.
It's the 21st century now, Renee. We've got jabs for all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Ozempic in the corner over there. Maybe just have you take a jab and maybe just have a meal in a bottle.
Problem solved. Problem solved.
OK, moving on, Kai. What have you got for us?
So I've got a bit of an F1 story for us because if you don't know, Dr. Renee and I bond over the F1 on occasion. I've just been talking to Ben Leo, a friend of the show, and he's also a big fan, going to a race quite soon. I just want to highlight that this is shaping up to be an excellent F1 season for our brilliant British drivers. We had a win from Lando Norris in the opening race last week. We've got got Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. That looks to be very competitive.
Got
George Russell still at Mercedes. Honestly, it's going to be a great season. I think we'll all be quite excited to follow the progress.
Dr. Renee's son's got a big attachment to the F1, is that right?
He has a big attachment.
Any inside gossip you can give us?
He's not happy with the current Netflix Drive to Survive.
Oh, is he?
It's now being cut to be not actually indicative of what's going on.
They were always doing that, but I've seen reports that it's just dramatised to the point of where it's more fiction than reality, really. Lando Norris wasn't happy about the portrayal of his relationship with Max Verstappen. This is another Netflix show, by the way, that I've already binged. But it's shaping up to be a competitive season, quite exciting
that's
season.
What's needed. I mean, when you get Max winning 22 of 23 races, it does get boring.
OK, well, next, we'll get you the rest of the panel's triggered tantrums. It's my favourite bit of the I love watching these. We'll be back in just a moment.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. It's this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier, however, with lots of cloud around. That does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us, and temperatures a little above average.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra, and you've all been voting across the show today, and I believe the results might be in. Here we are. I'm on 20, Renee's on 34, continuing her winning streak. I only broke it last week because we changed it to a topic and proved the bot theory is real. Will's on 17, Harrison is on 24, and Kai is on 5. OK, then. So, how about we read some comments now? Because this is an interactive show, isn't it? The viewers' comments. And they're coming back, a few of them, to that debate you had with Miriam Cates.
I'm not going to win this one.
Said, with Miriam Cates all the way, kids need boundaries to make them feel secure above anything else. However, Charles is very much in your favour. He says, Will was right. Miriam is a classic Lib Dem Tory who believes that it's the government's job to run our lives and raise our children.
Can I answer that?
Well, why not?
The reason Will isn't right is because we don't let children smoke or drink alcohol because we know it's medically damaging for them. We now know that phones are medically damaging. It's the same.
Wow, there you go. OK, well, coming up next, we need to talk about my favourite part of the show, triggered tantrums. Kai, we're going to come to your triggered tantrum first.
Yeah, well, talking about phone-addicted weirdos... Elon Musk.
I thought you were talking about yourself. I thought that was a self-deprecating joke.
That wasn't me. You can choose who I'm talking about. No, Elon Musk has been getting quite sad this week. Turns out the man who desperately needs popularity more than anything else has been getting quite sad when things don't go his way. Now, we have a tweet, but, you know, it's one example of many where Elon Musk this week has been, of course, rightly angry about the vandalism of Teslas. That shouldn't happen. But actually not looking inward to wonder why that's happening. Maybe when you fire thousands and thousands of good, hard-working people from their jobs, when you lean into racist theories online, completely debunked theories, when you criticise experts calling them a paedophile, as he did many years ago, no wonder people don't like what you have to say and take action against it. Now, the vandalism is completely wrong, but this can't be a surprise to him. The things he's done over the past few weeks in particular are awful.
Should we have a look at that graphic first? Yeah, there we go. I mean, yes. So basically, what we're talking about here is there's a bunch of what Kai's told you is half the truth to all you. We're a channel of truth seekers here, and what's actually been happening is the so-called liberal left, who are meant to be all about kindness and forgiving, are actually destroying and vandalising not only Tesla dealerships, but they're also vandalising cars,
people's cars on the road. They're blowing them up. They're petrol bombing them. They're doing
electric cars. Electric cars, which were like, they were the beacon of the left and hope and going green, and now obviously Elon's not their man anymore, so they
a minority of protesters are doing that, not the whole left, but actually the reasons they're doing that and the things that Elon Musk is doing are much more insidious than whatever a minority of protesters
The reasons you've just given for them doing that are complete nonsense. The reason they're doing it is they're having a tantrum about Elon Musk being in the government with Trump and actually exposing all of the fraud that's gone on. He fired people from X 3 years ago, Kai.
And do you know what? I'm talking about the 5 federal employees, Renee, of which there are thousands and thousands of people who do incredibly
I think it's more than that.
No, they weren't needed. I think lots of them have been rehired when they realise the mistakes they've made when they fire people like people working on the US nuclear deterrent.
This is domestic terrorism now under an executive order by Donald Trump. He has decided to call these people domestic terrorists. I think that's exactly right.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think they're annoyed because Elon Musk did used to be someone for the left, to be like, he's this champion of, electric vehicles and pushing it forward. And look, you can't take that away from him. He has kind of really accelerated the electric car market. I'm not a massive fan of electric cars myself, but you have to get it. I think that's why they're so angry. It's because they once had their man and now he's gone to the side and they are absolutely fuming about it.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I see these stickers around London now, including some of people who live very close next door to me. I bought this car before I found out Elon Musk was a madman. I'm like, if you have to make that kind of statement, one loser. Honestly, you really are. But anyway, let's move on. Harrison, what have you got for us?
Yes. OK, so let's go to LBC, where we have Lewis Goodall, who is a presenter on LBC. And, he didn't really like it very much when someone had the audacity to reply to him. Have a look at this.
You keep using the word irregular to describe these migrants, and that's a very clever device by the left in this country that tries to use that term to normalise illegal migration.
In fact, in law and international law, it is not actually possible for the UK government to make illegal passage of these people into Britain, because if they are a genuine refugee, then they have the legal right to make that journey and be here. So that is the reason I do not say illegal, and it is not a sleight of hand on my part. It is in the name of accuracy and not echoing political language. Now go ahead.
I disagree.
Well, you can't disagree because it's a fact.
No, it's definitely a device that the left uses to try and normalise open borders and illegal migration. Anyway,
well,
so
you're wrong.
The other thing, the Labour MP, I'm not wrong, and you're a leftist, so you're incorrect. As usual.
You seem like you're interested in having a. You seem like you're. Oh, you know what, Richard? Bye bye. Let's talk to Samina instead. I'm not having that. It's just boring.
You know what? I'm going to take a leaf out of Lewis Goodall, but I'm going to start cutting off Kai. I think my producer said, can we just cut Kai? You're done now. Every time you talk something that I don't like. How funny. That just goes to show how great GB News is, isn't it? We let everyone speak here. Even if we disagree with them, we let them speak. That wouldn't happen.
Well, I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious.
It's hilarious, but I think what's really interesting about that is his body language.
Yeah.
He is so angry.
Yeah.
He's so angry. He's moving around in his chair.
Yeah. And I just think he actually gets someone who is challenging him, because sometimes when people call up on the phone, they're a bit shaky because people are listening to them. He's got someone who actually knows what they're talking about, and he's going, actually, I can't have someone show me up, so slam him down kind of thing. I thought it was very funny.
Or illegal, Kai?
Well, I agree with Lewis Goodall. I think the reason he was angry is because his journalistic integrity was being impugned by this guy who was saying you're applying a political agenda, you're part of this sort of conspiracy of silence by the left. That would have insulted him quite deeply, because he is quite a rigorous journalist. I don't watch his stuff, but he is good.
If I may, Kai, you're wrong. You're a leftist. Goodbye.
All right, well, listen, to wrap up this show, because we're all about listening to everyone's views here, I want to just take a lovely comment from Bebe McCourt here, who's one of our fantastic members here at GB News. So it's great to have a cordial debate from the Saturday 5. All opinions welcome, so it's important to hear other views from your own, as it only empowers your opinion and perspective.
Well said.
What a fantastic way to end
it is.
And you know what? I want to say, because some people get very upset, Kai, we always go for a drink afterwards. We're all very cordial here on the Saturday 5. We love what we do. We're just very passionate about our views. But I want to thank Will. Renee, go on.
Can I quickly show my shoes? And the reason I'm doing that is somebody has said they'll give double the amount to Comic Relief if I show my hips.
Well done.
Andy.
Well, I hope that isn't clipped up on some other platforms. Anyway, thank you to our fantastic hosts. Thank you for coming on tonight. And I hope you have a lovely Saturday. Up next It's the fantastic Ben Leo. Thank you very much for watching tonight, and we'll see you again on the Saturday 5 next week, won't we? We'll see you all very soon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we also start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. It's this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier. However, with lots of cloud around, that does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here